Chapter 605. Exploring hidden treasures was a painstaking job that usually required a lot of time. Sometimes, a room had to be cleaned many times before the hidden treasures could appear. However, Jiang Wang had the help of the spirit concealing snake and had obtained the theurgy in advance. Under the illumination of the theurgy seed, the hidden treasures could appear so quickly. One residence had one hidden treasure. The theurgy seed was born with the inner residence and was unique. One could choose a hidden treasure, but only one could be chosen. Once given up, it would disappear and never appear again. The choice of a hidden treasure was of great significance to an inner residence cultivator. After the evening class ended, the night continued. Jiang Wang looked up at the moonlight and saw that it was as white as frost and snow. He had spent many nights like this in cultivation. He silently entered the great illusionary land. He hadn't been to the great illusionary land for a few days. He had just obtained a new hidden treasure and was about to go to the sword discourse arena to try it out. However, as soon as he entered the blessed land, a fat paper crane fluttered over. Jiang Wang wasn't surprised that Cheng Gengsheng often used this method to communicate with him. He reached out to take the paper crane and unfolded it into a piece of paper. There were only 4 words on it. Return to Linzi quickly. Jiang Wang didn't doubt Cheng Gengsheng's suggestion. However, what puzzled him was what made Cheng Gengsheng so anxious. Could there be any accidents that he couldn't resist alone in Linzi right now? Did something happen on Wang Yiwu's side? Or did Yung Genzuan come out of seclusion early? Jiang Wang's mind whirled as he replied, "What happened?" Almost immediately after the paper crane flew away, an invitation from the Star River space appeared. Cheng Gengsheng had probably been waiting in the great illusionary land for the past few days, which was why he was so timely. After agreeing, he reunited with Cheng Gengsheng in the Star River Pavilion. Immediately returned to Linzi. Cheng Gengsheng said anxiously as soon as they met. Jiang Wang frowned. What on earth happened? Although he believed that Cheng Gengsheng would not do something without reason, he had finally found the time to visit his sister. He really did not want to go back halfway. Li Longchuan came to the Sunset Mountain Villa to find me. His sister, Li Fengyao, sent him a message from the nearby islands, saying that someone wants to kill you. Cheng Gengsheng said straightforwardly, "That person is Hai Zongming, a powerful elder of the Fishing Sea Tower." Why did the elder of the Fishing Sea Tower want to kill me? Jiang Wang frowned even harder as he tried to connect the dots. Because of Hu Xiaoming? That shouldn't be the case. This matter should have ended inside the Fishing Ocean Tower. Also, how is it related to Big Sister Fengyao? Sister Fengyao. The fat on Cheng Gengsheng's face twitched, but he wasn't in the mood to joke. He said directly, "It was Su Xiangqian who found Li Fengyao, and Li Fengyao asked Li Longchuan to inform me. And the person who first sent this message to Su Xiangqian was the woman who helped you in Qingyang town, Zhu Biqiong." Cheng Gengsheng knew about Zhu Biqiong, so he believed this news without a doubt and hurriedly contacted Jiang Wang. Similarly, when Jiang Wang heard the name Zhu Biqiong, he knew the seriousness of the matter. Zhu Biqiong came from the Fishing Sea Tower. Her nature was pure, so the news must be true. Jiang Wang thought for a moment and asked, "What's Hai Zongming's strength? Has he already set off?" His question pointed to the most crucial point at the moment. With Cheng Gengsheng's intelligence, he naturally would not ignore this kind of information. He replied, "The 24 powerful elders of the Fishing Sea Tower are at least at the peak of the outer tower. Hai Zongming is at this realm. When the news first came, they probably didn't know that you had left Qi. But this is not a secret, so it's easy to find out. If Hai Zongming is determined to kill you, he should have taken action by now." Jiang Wang pondered for a moment and made a decision. "Help me find out where he is right now. It's best if you can find out his cultivation method, the techniques he's good at, and the artifacts he usually uses. What do you want to do?" Cheng Gengsheng frowned. "Don't be reckless. This is not the time for you to play the hero. When you return to Linzi, those stupid elders of the Fishing Sea Tower won't be able to do anything to you. You can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days?" Jiang Wang said in a low voice. Have you forgotten how Zhao Xian died? Yes, Zhao Xian, who was at the outer tower, was stabbed to death in broad daylight on the streets of Linzi. No matter how powerful Qi was, there were still times when he made mistakes, and there were also people who dared to take risks. Cheng Gengsheng was at a loss for words. He paused and said anxiously, "You can live in my uncle's residence." Jiang Wang waved his hand. "Let's not talk about whether your uncle is willing or not. I don't want to. If that high guy guards me for the rest of my life, does that mean I can't see my sister for the rest of my life? Or do I have to hide in Qi, in your uncle's residence, and cultivate until I reach the peak of the outer tower? What if he reaches the immortal arrival by then? Do I still have to hide?" He looked at Cheng Gengsheng. "Listen to me. I know you're very resourceful. I need all the information on Hai Zoming now. The more detailed, the better. You want to kill him?" Cheng Gengsheng widened his small eyes. "Jiang Wang, aren't you too arrogant? You just opened your first inner tower. I've seen the extreme power of the peak of the outer tower. I know what I want to do." Jiang Wang's attitude was very clear. "Go and find out the information first. Give me the information as soon as possible. When the time comes, whether I run or not depends on Hai Zoming's situation. Don't worry, I won't act rashly." In order to prevent Cheng Gengsheng from persuading him again, Jiang Wang directly left the galaxy space after saying this. Of course, he knew that Cheng Gengsheng was doing this for his own good, but he had his own ideas. He didn't want to put Cheng Gengsheng in a difficult position. In the end, if Hai Zoming was determined to kill and couldn't be changed, then there was only one way to solve this problem, and that was to kill Hai Zoming. He believed that Cheng Gengsheng was willing to do anything for him. However, if he didn't rely on Zheng Genjie, Cheng Gengsheng's cultivation and battle strength were only at the peak of the soaring dragon realm. He would definitely be able to achieve remarkable power, but he hadn't yet. Was it possible for Zheng Genjie to kill Hai Zoming for him? Zheng Genjie still had a foundation in the offshore islands. The old master's fourth son, Chongxian Mingyi, was personally overseeing it. It was obvious how important it was. Not long ago, he had exchanged the rights to develop Chongjia Island for 10 years with the Tian clan. If he killed the elder of Fishing Sea Tower here, the foundation there would immediately be overturned. Jiang Wang wasn't willing to put himself on both sides of the scale and let Zheng Genjie make a choice, especially when he was obviously on the higher side. The best choice Zheng Genjie could make was already very clear. What Cheng Gengsheng mentioned was the best condition he could obtain. Move into Marquis Ding Yuan's residence and let Chongxian Chu Yang personally protect him. Jiang Wang was actually a proud person. He couldn't accept that he had to rely on someone else's wings for the rest of his life. He couldn't accept that he would lose the right to look after his sister forever. Therefore, he had no other choice. He wanted Hai Zoming dead, no matter what method he used, no matter why Hai Zoming wanted to kill him. Chapter 606. Jiang Wang wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but he wasn't afraid of killing either. He didn't think that killing was the best way to solve problems, but he didn't avoid killing either. If Hai Zoming wanted to kill him, he would think of a way to kill Hai Zoming first. Then, the first thing to consider was how to kill Hai Zoming. Jiang Wang's first thought was the doorless hell. With the doorless hell's strength, killing an outer pavilion peak expert wouldn't be a problem. Yingguan might not even be needed. The problem was, how much would it cost? Could he afford it? Looking at himself, he could use the invisibility cloak, the wind-frozen bead from Planet Een, some secret techniques, and Dao essence stones. He should be able to buy Hai Zoming's head. In the face of danger, Jiang Wang wouldn't be stingy with treasures. Of course, if he was willing to join the doorless hell, he might not have to pay. Contacting Yingguan wasn't a big problem. Every time he met Yingguan, it was Yingguan who came looking for him. He didn't have a way to directly contact Yingguan. However, with the doorless hell's current reputation, it shouldn't be too difficult to find its peripheral organizations. After contacting them, he just had to pay a deposit and wait for news. For the doorless hell, those organizations could only be used to transmit information and issue missions. It was impossible for people with intentions to find the doorless hell through these peripheral organizations. The doorless hell was a backup. The advantage was that they would definitely be able to deal with Hai Zongming. The disadvantage was that the price was high. It was impossible to kill Hai Zongming without paying a price. Furthermore, if the doorless hell was too deeply involved, there might be a lot of trouble. If he didn't consider the Zhenggenjia, there was no need to consider the other forces on Qi's side. Of course, Qi would protect him. As a blue metal, Yulin wouldn't watch him die. However, he wouldn't be more concerned than Chongxian and Chu Yang. Since he didn't plan to return to Qi now, there was no need to consider this side. If he wanted to rely on external forces, he had two options. One was the Xiankong Temple. Monk Ku Ju was annoying, but his strength was unquestionable. The problem was whether Jiang Wang was willing to become a monk. The other option was the Sky Pavilion. As the sect behind the Cloud Country, High Heaven Pavilion should have no problem dealing with Hai Zongming. However, he had placed Jiang Anan in High Heaven Pavilion for so long, and now that he was finally going to see his sister, would it be appropriate for him to bring trouble with him? Moreover, with Hai Zongming's speed, would he be able to intercept him before he reached High Heaven Pavilion? Putting aside the external forces, he looked back at himself. He had opened the first inner mansion, obtained the divine ability of the true Samadhi fire, and had just obtained the Starfire secret treasure. He was definitely considered a powerhouse among the inner mansion cultivators. Compared to Lei Zhanxian in the divine ability inner mansion, he was not much weaker. Beside him, there was also Feng Qian, who possessed the pinnacle sword art of this era. Although he was only in the soaring dragon realm, he possessed the killing power of the inner palace realm. If Hai Zongming was an ordinary outer tower peak without any supernatural powers, then he and Qian Qian might be able to fight him if they joined forces. If Hai Zongming had been promoted from the inner mansion of the remarkable ability, then Jiang Wang could only join the doorless hell or immediately shave his head. He was persistent, but he was not stupid. Being an assassin or a monk was better than being dead. As for returning to Linzi, he did not even consider it. And Anne's letters came one after another, often making his nose ache. He had already contacted Yi Qingyu and wanted to give it a surprise. Hiding for a long time because of Hai Zongming was definitely not his choice. Next, he would have to wait for Cheng Gengsheng's news. He completely trusted Cheng Gengsheng's ability. Since Hai Zongming was an elder with real power in Fishing Sea Tower, then he was not a nobody. Cheng Gengsheng would definitely be able to find out something. After gaining a better understanding of Hai Zongming, he would have a greater chance of dealing with him. Originally, Hai Zongming wanted to kill him. Hai Zongming was in the dark while he was in the light. Now, because of his friend's messages, he knew that Hai Zongming was going to kill him, but Hai Zongming did not know that he already knew. Now that he was in the dark and the enemy was in the light, this was another advantage. After sorting out these things in his mind, the pressure of facing a strong enemy had lessened by a lot. Hai Zongming was not an undefeatable opponent. There were many ways to deal with him. Jiang Wang calmed his mind and then began to think about another problem. It had been so long since he killed Hu Xiaoming. Why did Hai Zongming suddenly want to kill him? The news came from Zhu Biqiang, but it was not very detailed. She probably did not know the reason either. She could only guess that Hai Zongming wanted to avenge his disciple. But this did not make sense. If Hai Zongming really had such a deep master-disciple relationship with Hu Xiaoming, why would he wait until now to take revenge? There must be some factor that changed Hai Zongming's mind. Then, he thought about it from another angle. There were generally only two reasons for killing people, either for revenge or for profit. Hai Zongming's lack of reaction when Hu Xiaoming died had already eliminated the former. Looking at it from the word profit, profit was a benefit, including the pleasure of killing, evil cultivators cultivating through killing, and so on. But Hai Zongming clearly did not belong to these. Fishing Ocean Tower was also a big sect, the leader of the islands near the sea. With Hai Zongming's identity, what profit could move him? Why do you have to take the risk to kill Jiang Wang? With Jiang Wang's current identity, even if Hai Zongming really killed him, he would have to pay a price. Then where did the profit related to Hu Xiaoming come from? The answer was obvious. The red makeup mirror. Jiang Wang only got a treasure light formula, and a red makeup mirror from Xiaoming. The treasure light formula was not very useful. Not only was its grade not high, but Jiang Wang spent most of his time in a powerful country like Qi. Most of his treasures had owners. And the red makeup mirror. Previously, he did not know how precious the red makeup mirror was. The more he saw, the more he understood. After passing the flying snow tribulation, his soul was strengthened. A strong soul was undoubtedly a boost to his strength. But he had never seen any other treasures that could strengthen the soul. Usually, he could not come into contact with secret techniques that involved the soul at his level. With the strength of his soul and the sea of flame flowers as the foundation, he replicated the soul flame flower. Then he used the soul secret technique that the hidden Snake King used to invade the Tontian Palace and replicated the hidden Snake King's soul. It should be known that even Zhu Guangshu and Wang Yiwu, who had both background and talent, could only defend in the soul domain at this stage and had no offensive power. Now that he had stepped into the inner mansion realm, he had started to train his soul, especially the preciousness of the red makeup mirror. Ordinary cultivators followed the prescribed order from learning to walk to walking as fast as flying. However, the red makeup mirror allowed him to skip the walking stage and the running stage and directly flying stage. Now, Hai Zoming was a peak outer building elder with real power in the fishing sea tower. It could be said that everyone wanted the red makeup mirror. The value of the red makeup mirror was probably higher than Jiang Wang had guessed. After passing the flying snow tribulation, Jiang Wang was very cautious about the red makeup mirror. He was afraid that he would accidentally fall into it one day and his soul would dissipate. His original plan was to wait until his soul was stronger before exploring this treasure. But because of Hai Zoming's killing intent, he decided to bring it forward. After a few battles at the soul level, coupled with the fact that the power of his soul had grown during this period, he was actually confident. Xiang Qian. Jiang Wang woke up the dead fish face who was sleeping soundly. I need to search for a treasure. Help me guard the area. If you discover that my soul is starting to dissipate, immediately kill me with a sword. Xiang Qian opened his sleepy eyes. Hearing this, his eyes flashed, and his sleepiness was killed by a sword. Chapter 607. Xiang Qian was trustworthy. When he was almost trapped in the red makeup mirror, it was Xiang Qian who was guarding the door. Xiang Qian did not retreat when he met Long Mian outside Qingyang town. When he went to kill the Rizhao prefectural governor, Xiang Qian had also accompanied him. This was also why he cared so much about Xiang Qian and did not want to see him continue to sink. As for Jiang Yin, Jiang Wang would never trust him before he left Tontian Palace. The only time he could trust Jiang Yin was when he was in mortal danger. After all, they were in the same body. For his own safety, Jiang Yin had to do something. Just like when he brazenly attacked Ji Cheng on the battlefield of Qiang. Jiang Wang made this request to Xiang Qian to guard against Jiang Yin. He was not afraid that Jiang Yin would know and even wanted to warn Jiang Yin. The first time he explored the red makeup mirror, his soul disappeared so suddenly that he and Jiang Yin did not know what was going on in the red makeup mirror. Because of this, Jiang Yin missed that opportunity. But this time, Jiang Wang directly told Xiang Qian to kill him once his soul began to collapse. This was to prevent Jiang Yin from having any thoughts. Even if Jiang Wang's soul was destroyed in the red makeup mirror, Jiang Yin, as a guest of Tontian Palace, would still need a long time to occupy this body. It would not be so easy to erase Jiang Wang's brand. And this time was enough for Xiang Qian to kill this body several times over. Jiang Yin had no choice but to pray that Jiang Wang could complete the exploration. Although Xiang Qian did not understand why Jiang Wang made such a strange request, he could sense Jiang Wang's determination. So he directly dispelled his sleepiness and said, "Don't worry." A serious Xiang Qian was very reassuring. Jiang Wang said no more. He closed his eyes and entered the world of the red makeup mirror with his soul. Splash, splash, it was the sound of waves. It was like a dream gently swaying. The sound was soft and comfortable, but it only lasted for a moment before it became manic and violent. The waves hit the waves and collided with each other, making extremely violent and frightening sounds. The change in the sound gave people the feeling that a tsunami had suddenly come on a sunny day, sudden and violent. Thus, his peaceful life was shattered, and the end of the world had arrived. A voice passed through the raging tsunami and rang in Jiang Wang's ears. Who says that there are no beauties in this world? Every time she wears her red makeup, she will kill one. Transcend the overturning sea's tribulation. This voice was the same one he heard during the flying snow tribulation. It was the same cold and emotionless voice. However, the content was different, and the calamity had also changed. The poem he recited during the flying snow tribulation was, "A pitiful face aged in front of the mirror. Red makeup killed the person in the mirror." It was more like the saying that beauty would age easily, youth would pass quickly, and beauty would no longer exist. Time was heartless. However, if one combined it with the poem of this calamity, it might not be just that. Perhaps there was another meaning. The poem of this calamity described a very dangerous image. Who said that there were no stunning beauties in this world? Every time the red makeup mirror shone, one person would be killed. There were no peerless beauties in this world because they had all been killed. Vaguely, the disaster in the red makeup mirror seemed to be telling a terrifying story. Jiang Wang did not have time to think too much, because when the voice fell, he was already swept into the huge wave. It was a huge wave that overflowed the sky. It was turbulent, violent, and covered everything. Jiang Wang had the experience of being trapped in water and surrounded by water. Both times, it was in Zhuo Guangshu's Dao technique. However, the difference between now and then was more than 10 times or 100 times. Jiang Wang subconsciously raised a circle of sword, but it was almost crushed the moment it appeared. It was impossible to resist. Jiang Wang immediately made a judgment. However, before his brain could analyze it, his body had already instinctively made the most appropriate reaction. He raised his sword stance. Body beyond my own will. Among the 4 moves of the human Dao sword that he had mastered so far, the strongest was the 3rd move, body beyond my own will. However, the reason why he used this move now was not because it was strong. Jiang Wang raised his sword stance, but the sword did not stab out. His body was like duckweed, drifting with the waves. He borrowed the sword stance of body beyond my own will to move around in the turbulent waves. His body was the lightest, the softest, and the most powerless. As a result, he could not directly resist the waves. When the waves came, he would come. When the waves came, he would go. He was a drop of water in the ocean, the most insignificant existence in the waves. Although he could not avoid confrontation, it was completely different from the beginning, when he faced all the pressure head-on. The response of this sword could be called exquisite. It almost immediately dispelled the threat of the beginning of the overturning the sea tribulation. Although it was still impossible to avoid injury, the pressure that he had to face was less than a 10,000th of it. Jiang Wang attacked again and again. With each strike, he only raised his sword stance and did not attack. His body beyond my own will did not rise for a long time, as if he was waiting for a certain opportunity. If this trend continued, he seemed to be able to persist until he could no longer wield his sword. Would the overturning the sea tribulation end so easily? At this moment, he heard a woman's voice. Or rather, this voice had been going on all this time. It was only now that he was able to slightly divert his attention to hear it. It seemed to belong to the same person as the cold voice at the beginning, but the emotions were completely different. This voice was full of emotions, extremely intense, extremely ruthless, and full of hatred. This voice was shouting, overturning the sea, "I will kill you." It kept repeating and shouting, overturning the sea, "I will kill you." Overturning the sea, "I will kill you." Jiang Wang suddenly understood. Was overturning the sea not only the name of this tribulation, but also the name of some existence? While the sword stance was still in motion, Jiang Wang, one man and one sword, drifted in the tsunami. At a certain moment, the tsunami came to an abrupt stop. Everything quieted down. Jiang Wang was submerged in a part of the sea. Looking back, up, down, left, and right, all he could see was a boundless blue sea. The sea was very calm, but this calm made him restless and uneasy. It was as if some unforeseen event was happening, but he could not grasp it for the time being. Jiang Wang carefully observed his surroundings, but he could not find any clues. Only that voice, full of hatred, kept repeating. Who was overturning the sea? Who was me? The creator of the red makeup mirror? This thought only flashed through his mind. After all, the answer behind it could not change the situation. He suddenly felt heat. It was an incomparably scorching, incomparably harsh heat. This heat came out of nowhere, occupying all his senses in an instant. Visual heat, auditory heat, and sensory heat. The seawater seemed to be boiling, and the entire sea was bubbling. Jiang Wang was like a swordfish, swimming upstream as fast as he could. But the sea was boundless. Where could he see the end of it? His skin had already turned red. He could almost smell the fragrance of his own flesh. Both the heavenly palace and the first inner palace erupted at the same time. Jiang Wang desperately swam upstream. If he could not quickly leave the sea, he would very likely be cooked alive in the sea. At this moment, he raised his head in shock. Through the boundless sea water, he saw the sun, a sun that was getting bigger and bigger, more and more scorching. All the blue sea water in sight was dyed red by the scorching heat. The sun was falling into the sea. Chapter 608. So this was the real overturn the sea calamity? Overturn the sea was not overturning the sea, but destroying the entire sea? The real test of this calamity did not come from the sea itself. The sun was getting closer and closer. The sun hanging high in the sky was falling irrevocably into the human world. It was falling into the sea and also falling into Jiang Wang in the sea. This scene was like the end of the world. It was so despairing. Jiang Wang's reason kept telling him that this was an illusion. This was an illusion. However, the experience of the flying snow calamity had already shown that everything that happened in the red makeup mirror could not be viewed as an illusion. If he died here, he would really die. If he was in the sea, he would only be slowly cooked. If he rushed out of the sea, he would probably be instantly ignited by the sun. In this situation where he had no way out, Jiang Wang raised his index finger. A small flame was stubbornly ignited in the sea. Supernatural power, true samadhi fire. His essence, qi, and spirit were perfectly united. This little flame suddenly exploded at this moment. The flames actually spread along with the seawater, spreading in all directions. The entire sea, which had been illuminated red by the sun, was ignited with a raging flame that covered everything. Before the sun completely fell, the flame had already ignited the sea. At this moment, boom, the sun had completely set. Heaven and earth fell into silent darkness. Jiang Wang's vision and hearing were deprived. If he looked directly at the sun, he would be blinded. If he listened closely, he would be deafened. Fortunately, he was in the true samadhi fire. Fire could not harm other fire, especially the true samadhi fire. The supernatural power protected him, and his vision returned in the next moment. Then, he saw a strange scene that he would never forget. He did not know if it was because he was looking at this world under the protection of the true samadhi fire, but everything was covered in a fiery red color. Within Jiang Wang's vision, the sea, which was so oppressive that he found it difficult to breathe and could not see the end of it, had completely disappeared. Endless water vapor surged into the sky, filling up all the gaps between heaven and earth. Everything in front of him became a white and misty world. That scene was extremely spectacular. The boundless sea water turned into boundless scorching steam. After the scorching sun fell into the sea instantly dried up. Jiang Wang was suspended in the air. Because the sea was boundless and he couldn't see the shore, it wasn't easy to see how deep the sea was and how much water the sun had dried up. However, there was not a single drop of water in the area that should have been the bottom of the sea. There were only withered hills that stretched into the distance. The sea became hills. His soul should have been destroyed by the falling sun along with the seawater. However, because of the true Saudi fire's supernatural power, he was one step ahead of the others and was thus bypassed by the scorching sun. Then, where did the sun go? After falling into the sea and drying up the sea, why did the sun disappear? Jiang Wang looked up at the sky. Boundless water vapor was still rising, as if it would never stop. However, the red sun was nowhere to be seen. There was still light between heaven and earth, but that light was not from the sun, but from the burning true samadhi fire. The sun had disappeared. It was only then that Jiang Wang realized that the persistent, resentful voice had disappeared, overturning the sea's tribulation. That cold voice sounded again. The sun has been extinguished. The spreading true samadhi fire suddenly disappeared at a certain moment. Heaven and earth fell into darkness. It was darkness without any light. It was deathly, silent darkness that seemed to last forever. Jiang Wang's soul turned and returned to his body. The moment he opened his eyes, the light in his eyes surged. Feng Chang, who was guarding in front of him, had no choice but to close his eyes to give way. "It's over?" Feng Chang asked. Jiang Wang nodded. Feng Chang didn't say anything. He turned around and jumped back to the tree he was sleeping under. He didn't ask Jiang Wang what he had gained, nor did he ask what Jiang Wang was doing just now. As for Jiang Wang, he was still immersed in that huge shock. After the flying snow tribulation, the ice and snow in the mirror world melted and the grass grew in spring. However, after the overturning the sea's tribulation, the mirror world seemed to have fallen into eternal night. These were two completely different endings. In particular, what made Jiang Wang ponder was, did the scorching sun fall into the sea really happen before? If he didn't get the true samadhi fire, how could he survive this overturning the sea's tribulation? The clue might be in the flying snow tribulation. Maybe he could only simulate the flying snow tribulation, freeze the sea, and use the iceberg to receive the sun. That way, when the sun fell, the instantaneous heat would melt the iceberg, but it might not be able to dry the sea. However, even in the mirror world, it was easier said than done to simulate the flying snow tribulation. When he passed the flying snow tribulation, he relied on the wish power of the people of Qingyang Town and the Blessed Land Challenge in the Great Illusionary Land to pull him out. He didn't completely rely on himself to pass the flying snow tribulation. His soul wasn't strong to that extent. This time, when he passed the overturning the sea's tribulation, he had the support of the divine ability. If he had the true samadhi fire in the flying snow tribulation, he wouldn't have to be afraid of the flying snow. After passing the flying snow tribulation, Jiang Wang completed the divine spirit flame flower and forced out the hidden Jiangyan. He forced him to promise that he wouldn't affect his will anymore. Then what about the overturning the sea's tribulation? What benefits would it bring? First, it was the change in his soul power. It was sharper, more comfortable, and more steady. These were just general feelings, not concrete. There was a very direct way to test it. When Jiang Wang sank into the inner mansion, Jiang Yin should be able to sense the strengthening of his soul. However, he wouldn't know how much stronger his soul had become. Jiang Wang didn't intend to let him know. Therefore, he chose to test it in the inner mansion instead of the heavenly palace. His first inner mansion had the true samadhi fire, which would only be more advantageous than in the heavenly palace. Jiang Yin definitely wouldn't dare to enter. His soul fell into the inner mansion. Jiang Wang immediately used the divine spirit snake concealment. Mysterious black snakes swam out crazily. In an instant, there were 300 of them. 300 was the previous limit, but the black snakes were still coming out. 400, 500, 700, they were still coming out. They hadn't reached the limit yet. The densely packed divine spirit snake concealment continued to expand into the rooms of the inner mansion. 1,200, 3,000. It was a full 10 times the previous number. The number of divine spirit snake concealment was very direct. Perhaps it showed how much stronger Jiang Wang's soul had become after the overturning the sea's tribulation. Jiang Wang ended the test with satisfaction and entered the red makeup mirror with his physical body. The space in the mirror world expanded again, becoming a circle with a radius of 50 steps. He could move freely within the circle, but he couldn't pass through the white mist outside the circle. The range of the red makeup mirror's reflection had indeed expanded to 50 miles. One step in the mirror world corresponded to 1 mile. If the red makeup mirror continued to expand like this, would there be a day when it could see the entire modern world? Jiang Wang shook his head and erased this thought. How could a treasure of that level be possible? Apart from that, the red makeup mirror's ability to reflect illusions had also changed. Previously, the illusion of the red makeup mirror could only be used when the wielder was in the mirror. It wasn't very practical. The red makeup mirror itself was very easy to discover and shatter. Moreover, the illusions didn't have any real combat power. Jiang Wang had only used it in the battle with Shi Zichu to test its effects. He hadn't used it again after that. But after the overturning the sea's tribulation, he didn't need to be in the mirror world anymore. He could rely on the red makeup mirror to reflect illusions. Although the illusions still didn't have any killing power, they had greatly enriched the changes in battle. The benefits of the red makeup mirror were indeed considerable. However, Jiang Wang wasn't immersed in joy. Instead, it was the sentence after the overturning the sea's tribulation. The sun extinguishes. The eternally blazing sun with endless light and heat. Could it also be extinguished? P.S. I'd like to recommend Fallen in Love's new book, Sword Soldier Crosses the River. He's a very diligent author. Friends who don't have books can read it. Fallen in Love became famous with one book. I hope he can become a god soon. Chapter 609. The red makeup mirror was dangerous, and each tribulation was more dangerous than the last. But after each tribulation, he gained a lot, and the biggest gain was related to his spirit. This was a treasure that even the powerful elder Hai Zongming of the Fishing Sea Tower coveted. Although he didn't know how Hu Xiaoming got it, its potential was still untapped. What could a peak outer building realm master get from the red makeup mirror? What would come after the overturning the sea tribulation? Jiang Wang thought about it, but didn't dare to try again. He was curious about the red makeup mirror, but the 2 tribulations in the mirror were much more difficult. He could only try it once with the progress he had made. He was a little curious, but he had to be alive to be curious. Inside the Tongtian Palace, the Milky Way vortex spun quietly, and the star-twining python swam slowly. The netherworld candle in the corner was quiet and didn't respond. Jiang Yin was acting obediently. Could he suppress Jiang Yin with his current spirit power? Such a thought flashed through his mind, but he quickly suppressed it. He couldn't do it now, and he wasn't confident. The Tongtian Palace was too dangerous a battlefield, and it could easily affect one's cultivation. Jiang Yin was mysterious enough, and he was more knowledgeable about the use of his spirit. Jiang Wang couldn't be careless. If he wanted to completely eliminate the hidden danger, he had to at least wait until his spirit became more powerful. Jiang Wang put away the red makeup mirror and flew to where Fang Chong was sleeping. He didn't say anything and just stared at him. After a while, Fang Chong opened his eyes. "Can you not look at me like that? It's okay. Go to sleep. It's just a small problem. I can solve it myself." Jiang Wang didn't answer his question. Fang Chong was speechless. "Did I ask you if you were okay? It's scary when you look at me like that." Fang Chong sounded aggrieved. "It's not scary when you're asleep," Jiang Wang replied indifferently. It would be strange if he could fall asleep like that. Okay. Fang Chong sat up. "What's the matter? Someone is after me." Fang Chong fell back down without saying anything. "Let me sleep before I die." The veins on Jiang Wang's forehead bulged. "If we work together, we'll have a chance. Stop fooling around." Xiang Qian weakly waved his hand. "That person dared to chase after you, so he must be stronger than you. There's no doubt about that, right? Even a famous Qi expert like you is being hunted down. It means that the force that person belongs to is also very strong and has a deep foundation. In a battle of this level, what can I, a nameless cultivator of the soaring dragon realm, do?" Jiang Wang encouraged him. Even if it's a rock, it will still hurt when it hits someone. I'm not even a rock. I'm just a pile of mud. Fang Chong gave up on himself. Jiang Wang was also very insistent. At least we can dirty other people's clothes. Forget it. Xiang Qian let out a long sigh. It's bad enough to be alive. Don't cause trouble for others. Jiang Wang couldn't be bothered with his discouraging words and went straight to the point. If the other party is already set off, they'll probably catch up with us in a few days. Qian Xiang didn't even ask who it was. He just scratched his messy hair and said listlessly, "It's very troublesome. Can't we run?" "I don't want to run," Jiang Wang said. Xiang Qian reluctantly became more serious and thought for a while. That day in Xingyang town, there was a very strong person who hit his tracks. "Can't you invite him?" "It'll cost money to invite him," Jiang Wang said. "It'll cost a lot of money." Xiang Qian was speechless. He didn't want to say anything. "Don't worry. I'm still waiting for the information," Jiang Wang reassured him. "If the other party can be dealt with, we'll fight with all our might. If not, I'll definitely not send myself to death." Xiang Qian was somewhat resigned to his fate, but he still struggled and said, "When you measure my strength, please remember that I'm only in the soaring dragon realm. Deal?" Jiang Wang patted him on the shoulder and said meaningfully, "I'll remember it very clearly." Not only did he remember that he was in the soaring dragon realm, but he also remembered that the solipsistic sword Dao he cultivated was one of the 3 top sword techniques of the flying sword era. That was a sword technique that overshadowed an era. How could it stop at the level that Xiang Qian showed? Of course, he wouldn't rely on Xiang Qian's possible strength to kill him. The reason why he tried so hard to invite Xiang Qian to help was because he had other considerations. While he persuaded Xiang Qian, Jiang Wang began to find a way out for himself. "Jiang Yin, Jiang Yin, Jiang Yin." The dark candle swayed impatiently, and Jiang Yan's voice slowly came out. "What's the matter? Hurry up and say it." His tone was helpless, even more so than Xiang Qian's. On one hand, Jiang Wang guarded against him as if he were a scourge, but on the other hand, he always used him without hesitation. Unfortunately, he was living under someone else's roof, so he couldn't refuse. "There's a cultivator in the peak stage of the outer tower, chasing after me. I may have to fight with him. I'm not sure if I'll win, so I need your help. When the time comes, you can help attack his spirit. We'll work together. Otherwise, we'll have to die together." "Why do you want to fight with a cultivator in the peak stage of the outer tower? This is the behavior of a reckless man," Jiang Yin reprimanded. Jiang Wang didn't reason with him or analyze the reason. He said directly, "I've already made up my mind." As the landlord, he had the right to be willful. Jiang Yin was silent for a while. "I'll only act when your life is at stake. As for when your life is at stake, I have my own judgment. It's very possible that my judgment is wrong, but I'll stick to my own judgment. So it's best that you don't count on me." He knew that after the exploration just now, Jiang Wang's spirit power had grown stronger, but he didn't know how much stronger it had become. He would have to slowly analyze it in the future. But no matter what, he certainly wouldn't let Jiang Wang decide when he would fight. Otherwise, it was very likely that as soon as he left on the Dark Candle, Jiang Wang would seal off the Heavenly Connection Palace and refuse to accommodate him. Jiang Wang's scheme was overt. He knew that if he died, Jiang Yin would die with him. In the face of danger, Jiang Yin had to act, and Jiang Yin indeed couldn't refuse. But he immediately made a precise response and threw the choice back to Jiang Wang. Of course, he didn't want to die, but Jiang Wang also didn't want to die. In fact, the two sides had the same leverage over each other. Jiang Wang didn't expect to crush Jiang Yin in terms of strategy, but he didn't have the time to test it out. If Jiang Yin didn't fall for it, then so be it. Jiang Yin would jump out to fight for him for no reason. Jiang Yin wasn't his only backup plan. After daybreak, he would go to the nearest big city and find the peripheral organization of the Doorless Hell to find a way to contact Yingguan. If Hai Zhongming had reached the outer building realm through inner mansion magical skills, he would be prepared to go bankrupt. In response to this sudden danger, Jiang Wang had basically made all the preparations he could. Next, he just had to wait for Cheng Gongsheng's intelligence. He would do his best and leave it to fate. Retreating from the heavenly connection palace, he looked up at the starry sky. Tonight was a long night. It wasn't just the time that felt exceptionally long. Who sent you? The voice was calm and clear, but for some reason, there was a gloomy sense of fear that didn't belong to the human world. It made the heart of those who heard it feel cold, as if they had fallen into hell. The cultivator, whose limbs were bound tightly to a wooden stake, remained silent. There was nothing special about the cultivation method he cultivated. His face was also nothing special. His clothes and everything about him were extremely ordinary. Similarly, he wouldn't say anything. No one could get any clues from him. But standing in front of him was a man with an average face, but a unique charm due to some kind of divine temperament. Obviously, he didn't agree with this. Then I'll ask again. The man said, "Who sent you to find me?" Zhang Linchuan. It was rare that Zhang Linchuan was willing to repeat his question. As his control over the white-boned saint body deepened, his aura became more and more mysterious and cold. The cultivator with an average face still didn't speak. He didn't even give him a mocking look. He wouldn't allow himself to reveal any clues in any way. He had undergone extremely strict training. He shouldn't have been captured alive, but the man in front of him was too strong. He was so strong that he had no room to resist at all. He didn't even have the chance to commit suicide before he was restrained. He didn't even know how he was restrained. But his stubborn silence was also a clue. He's well-trained and comes from a famous sect. Zhang Linchuan nodded and gave his judgment. Then, he turned to the old man behind him with his eyes tightly closed. "Elder Lu, can we interrogate his soul?" Lu Yin, who was born with the dark eye, shook her head. His soul is inherently flawed. It shouldn't be born, but a kind of brilliant method with very shallow traces. Once an outsider tries to investigate, he will immediately collapse. It seems that he's really an extraordinary force. Zhang Linchuan frowned and thought hard. I've dealt with the people of the Zhuang state, both in the open and in the dark. This person is not one of them. And now that the white bone path is gone, other than the Zhuang state, who would be so interested in me? Lu Yin didn't speak. Wang Zhangji? Zhang Linchuan asked, and answered his own question. Such a subordinate can't be trained in such a short time. Miao Yu, he shook his head again. She can't wait to avoid me. How would she dare to provoke me? This is really strange. Who else could it be? Zhang Linchuan turned his head and stared at the ordinary-looking cultivator. You really make me curious. This is not a good thing for you. Do you understand? This didn't sound like a threat because his tone was very calm. The ordinary-looking cultivator still didn't speak. If he had the chance to commit suicide, he would have died long ago. And Zhang Linchuan indeed didn't mean to threaten him. He directly reached out and pressed down, pressing his entire head into his body. The situation was miserable, and he couldn't be more dead. Was he free? This was the last thought of the man of sacrifice before he died. Then, he soon saw light in the boundless darkness. At first, he thought that it was the Yin spirit that his family had sent to receive him. But on second thought, the Yin spirit of the family wouldn't receive a man of sacrifice because the appearance of the Yin spirit of the family was a kind of exposure. And that kind of light was pale and miserable. He heard a voice say, "Welcome to the lifeless world." P.S. In the afternoon, 4 red heart hand-drawn drawings were posted on the public account of the same name, RJQS000. It's mainly a few maps that have already been experienced. For example, Maplewood City and the Yang State. If you're interested, you could take a look. You might be able to grasp the details better by comparing them with novels. Of course, don't expect anything from the artist. Chapter 610. Hai Zoming, 54 years old, tall, one of the 24 elders with real power in the Fishing Sea Tower. He's at the peak of the outer tower and has already established the Four Saints Tower. There's no record of him obtaining a theurgy. 9 years ago, he fought with the cultivators of the Tian family's outer tower. Both sides were on the brink of death, but no theurgy was seen. Therefore, we can basically confirm that he didn't obtain a theurgy when he was in the inner mansion stage. His main technique is the Dragon Fishing Code. This technique was passed down by the founder of the Fishing Sea Tower, the Dragon Fisherman. He uses his own body as a pole to fish everything. He's good at wind and water elemental Taoist techniques. The strongest technique he's shown is the A-grade wind elemental 9 slashes of the gray-green. I'll write you the details of its power and Uncle Chu Yang's suggestions later. The last time Hai Zoming fought in front of people was last year, so we don't know if he's mastered any new Taoist techniques. However, it's basically impossible for him to make a big leap before breaking through. Furthermore, Hai Zoming's close combat style is fierce, and his weapon is a pair of water-splitting thorns. His strongest revealed artifact is the dragon imprisoning rope, which binds the target upon contact. Therefore, we must not let it touch you. Finally, Hai Zoming is no longer in the fishing sea tower. Hai Zoming's absence meant that he had already set off. This meant that he already knew that Jiang Wang had left the Qi region and was on his way to hunt him down. Cheng Gongsheng's information was extremely detailed. He almost told Jiang Wang what kind of tea Hai Zoming drank every day. It took a lot of effort to gather this information, which involved the nearby islands. Cheng Gongsheng's power alone couldn't gather the complete information. Therefore, his fourth uncle, Chongxin Mingi, must have contributed to it. In fact, because of the previous generation, Cheng Gongsheng was only close to his uncle, Chongxian Chuyang. Needless to say, Chongxian Mingguang, Chongxin Mingi stayed in the nearby islands all year round and almost never returned to Linzi. They didn't interact much with each other. However, Cheng Gongsheng still went to find him for Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang could guess these things, but he didn't say anything. He only nodded. I know what to do. Don't be careless. You must not be careless. Cheng Gongsheng said seriously. No matter how much the doorless hell offers, I can afford it. He knew about the relationship between Jiang Wang and Yin Guan, and agreed that asking the gateless hell to help was the best choice. Because Hai Zoming had already set off, even if Jiang Wang turned back now, he might not be able to return to Qi Jing before Hai Zoming intercepted him. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing, Jiang Wang said. After learning that Hai Zoming had yet to pluck his divine ability, Jiang Wang had already made up his mind. He wanted to rely on himself to kill Hai Zoming. The inner mansion versus the outer mansion was probably the most common type of cross-realm challenge between cultivators. It was mainly because of the existence of the divine ability inner palace. In fact, in ancient times, the inner mansion realm was known as the transcendent realm. If one did not obtain the transcendent seed, one could not be considered in this realm. However, because divine abilities were hard to come by, there were too many cultivators who were stuck in this realm, unable to advance even an inch. Under the improvement of generations of genius cultivators, today's cultivators could surpass divine abilities and advance to the outer mansion from the ordinary inner mansion realm. This way, the number of cultivators in the outer mansion and beyond could rapidly increase. This was one of the proofs of the continuous development of the cultivation world. From then on, divine abilities were no longer a barrier. Even with divine abilities, one might not be able to achieve God's arrival. Without divine abilities, one might not necessarily be unable to reach truth understanding or even cultivate to the peak of transcendence. However, in the specific realm, there was one undeniable fact. The inner mansion of the divine ability inner palace was qualified to fight with the ordinary outer mansion. That was why the inner mansion of the divine ability inner palace was so respected. Even the qualifications of Qi's prefectural governor were originally at the outer mansion, but they were also open to the inner mansion of the divine ability inner palace. Hai Zoming was at the peak of the outer mansion with 4-star buildings side by side. His combat strength could roughly be compared to Lei Zhanxian after perfecting the 5 mansion. There was definitely a gap, but it was not the kind of gap that could not be crossed. Especially now, Jiang Wang had a comprehensive advantage in terms of intelligence. He could make arrangements in advance for all aspects of Hai Zoming. This was a huge advantage. It could even be said that he had the opportunity to close the gap in strength. If he could not grasp this opportunity well, Jiang Wang would not be worthy of being called Tianjiao. Of course, he would not directly confront him and completely entrust his life and death to the deduction of the battle. After making a thorough deduction of the battle and making up his mind, he still went to the nearest big city and found a way to contact the Doorless Hell. The Doorless Hell only accepted assassination missions, not protection missions. Therefore, Jiang Wang issued a mission to kill Hai Zoming. However, if Hai Zoming died before the Doorless Hell made a move, the mission would be cancelled. He only needed to pay a deposit. This way, he was prepared for both sides. It would be better if he could directly kill Hai Zoming. If he could not, he would wait for the Doorless Hell to make a move. However, to kill a peak Outer Mansion Realm cultivator, just the deposit alone would cost 500,000 primordial stones, which was equivalent to a second-class meridian unlocking pill. After leaving Zheng State, Jiang Wang and Xiang Qian continued westward. Jiang Wang's fire source totem was a combination of the bone lotus flower and the flame totem of the Qinghua tribe, which produced a change that Jiang Wang still could not understand. It had the ability to accumulate the star power of the Nether Heaven Star Beast, but it could not directly absorb the star power of the firmament. The situation had changed in Star Moon Plain. As Guan Yin had said, Star Moon Plain was one of the places in the present world closest to the starry sky. Moreover, Guan Yin had intentionally gathered it, so he could accumulate some star power in Star Moon Plain. Jiang Wang chose to store the star power in the bone lotus flower part, while the flame totem part continued to accumulate totem power. However, the star power, mainly from the Alioth Star Beast, was not as pure as the star power from the Nether Heaven Star Beast, and there was a difference in quantity. It was far from full after one night. The star power of the sword in the life and death chest filled the whole totem, which was far from the scale now. Given the speed at which Star Moon Plain accumulated star power, it would take at least a month to fill it up. Jiang Wang could not wait that long, so he left after one night. Now that he had decided to fight Hai Zoming, he should have returned to Star Moon Plain to accumulate more star power and increase his chances of winning the battle. However, if they suddenly returned to Star Moon Plain while hurrying along, it would definitely arouse Hai Zoming's vigilance. They would lose their biggest advantage, which was not worth the loss. Therefore, Jiang Wang chose to keep going. Since Hai Zoming is set out, it means that he has a way to track me down. Jiang Wang analyzed as he hurried along, but I don't know what method he used. Maybe he went to Qingyang Town or Linzi and got something related to me, or maybe someone sent him information. But he must be able to track me down, which can still be exploited. I can make him misjudge my speed, and thus misjudge my strength. The most he knows about me is the battle between me and Lei Zhanqian. Then there's time. According to the judgment of the Zhonggenjia masters, with his strength, he can catch up to me in about 2 to 3 days. We have to pretend that we know nothing and hurry along. We can't stop on the way, but we can control our speed to achieve the possibility of setting up the battlefield. I tentatively set the battlefield at Camel Peak Mountain. There are few people there, and it's impossible to get out in a day. It's the perfect place to set up an ambush. Besides, there's no water nearby, so the environment is very restrictive to Hai Zoming. I can't stop or turn back, so I'll leave the matter of setting up an ambush to you. Traps, formations, poisons, use everything you can. I only know how to use a sword, but I can prepare a few sword formations. Xiang Qian thought for a while and asked, what if we don't meet him at Camel Peak Mountain? It's not a good chance, and he's too cautious. Then we can only pay for our meat. Jiang Wang sighed. The information I provided to the Doorless Hell was at Camel Peak Mountain. We only have to wait for one day, and the assassins of the Doorless Hell should have arrived by then. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Xiang Qian retracted his listless gaze. I suddenly feel some sympathy for you. Chapter 6:11. The Camel Hump Mountain covered a vast area. It was considered a rare mountain in the flat central region. It got its name because it resembled a camel's hump. It had two main peaks, known as the East Camel Hump and the West Camel Hump. The traveling speed that most cultivators spoke of did not refer to the maximum speed. It referred to the fastest speed that could be achieved without affecting one's combat strength. In the world of transcendence, no one knew where danger would come from. Unless the situation was urgent, no one would pay the price of losing their combat strength to increase their speed. Furthermore, In the territories of some major powers, if one flew without any scruples, it would be seen as a provocation. Unless one's aura had been recorded by the powers and obtained permission to pass through in advance. Jiang Wang maintained about 90% of his traveling speed. Ever since he learned of Hai Zongming's killing intent, he maintained this speed during the day and stopped to cultivate at night. It was a very stable pattern. This was to maintain his original traveling habits and avoid Hai Zongming's suspicions. At the same time, it was convenient for Hai Zongming to track his movements. The Camel Hump Mountain was the battlefield that he had set up. After entering the Camel Hump Mountain, it meant that Hai Zongming could attack at any time. Jiang Wang would stop every 15 minutes to use the red makeup mirror to reflect the environment within a 50-mile radius. Of course, he was mainly observing the environment towards the east. As for the area ahead, he had already entered the West Camel Hump and was busy setting up the sword formation. As one of the inheritors of the 3 ultimate flying swords of the era of flying swords, he had more tricks up his sleeve than Jiang Wang. Once Jiang Wang discovered traces of Hai Zongming, he would immediately rush to the West Camel Hump and lure Hai Zongming into the sword formation. The sky darkened. Jiang Wang found a rock to rest. This location was not chosen randomly. The east side was blocked by rocks and trees, and it was not easy to see at first glance. However, he did not have to worry about his limited vision when he observed the environment through the red makeup mirror. He was almost out of the East Camel Hump, but there was still no sign of Hai Zongming. If he continued to pass the West Camel Hump and left the ambush area ahead, Jiang Wang would give up this attempt and decisively ask the Gateless Hell for help. The central region was densely populated and there were powers everywhere. If he continued forward, it would be difficult to find a spacious environment like the Camel Hump Mountain. It was easy for an ambush to happen. Every night on the road was a fixed time for Jiang Wang to cultivate. However, since they had already entered the Camel Hump Mountain, Jiang Wang naturally did not have the heart to continue cultivating. Instead, he just sat there and casually set up a vine snake to wrap around the red makeup mirror. He then entered the mirror world and observed his surroundings. This was a rather dull task. It was possible that nothing would happen within a 25-kilometer radius for the entire night. However, he had to observe every single movement carefully, or else he might miss the situation. Once he was caught off guard by Hai Zongming, all of his arrangements would fail. Jiang Wang calmed himself down and paid attention to what was reflected in the red makeup mirror. He was completely focused and did not allow himself to be distracted for even a moment. He would not allow himself to be careless. Around the 4th night watch period, a figure flashed past within the range of the red mirror. Hai Zongming had arrived. Jiang Wang immediately jumped out of the red makeup mirror without any hesitation. Bang, 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 bang. Explosions rang out continuously. Immediately, he turned into a flaming meteor and fled to the west. At that moment, the bright moon hung high in the sky, and a fiery meteor streaked across the sky. It was a good time to kill someone. After Hai Zongming found out that Jiang Wang had left the Qi realm, he immediately realized that this was a golden opportunity. A genius who was not in the Qi realm and did not receive the protection of the Qi realm was just a genius. No matter how talented a person was, they still needed time to grow. If he missed this opportunity, the chances of him taking back the red makeup mirror would only become smaller and smaller. Thus, he decisively announced that he was going into seclusion, but in reality, he had secretly left the Crescent Moon Island. Of course, he did not know that the moment he left the Crescent Moon Island, the news of him leaving had been leaked. The modern world was so vast that not many people knew where Jiang Wang had gone. However, for Hai Zongming, this was not a problem. He was tracking Jiang Wang by relying on a secret treasure, the Qi compass. This Qi was not air, but the Qi of essence, Qi, and spirit. It was a Qi that everyone could not do without and could not avoid. As long as he quietly collected a bit of Jiang Wang's Qi in the places where he lived, he could easily track him down. Lindsay might be a little more troublesome, but Qingyang town was almost defenseless to Hai Zongming. Relying on the Qi compass, Jiang Wang's speed was normal. He He traveled in the morning and slept at night, as if he did not notice his arrival. This was to be expected. If it were not for the clues in the ancient book, he did not think that he would be able to find Hu Xiaoming's murderer. Who would have thought of an action that even he did not think of in advance? He chased day and night without rest and finally approached his target. The Qi compass showed that Jiang Wang was in the Camel Peak Mountain. Of course, he knew that Jiang Wang had a divine ability inner mansion. He even knew that Jiang Wang's divine ability was the true Samadhi fire. However, this did not affect his confidence at all. It was said that a divine ability inner mansion was comparable to an ordinary outer mansion. But after all, there was still a gap. Moreover, Jiang Wang only had one mansion, while he had four. He, Hai Zoming, had fought on the sea all his life. He was not the kind of cultivator who always lived like a prince and had no cultivation base. What reason did he have that he could not take down Jiang Wang? When he saw Jiang Wang turn into a flaming meteor, he was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. Although he did not know how Jiang Wang discovered his approach, this was in line with the so-called uniqueness of Tianjiao, wasn't it? Moreover, Jiang Wang fled so decisively, indicating that he did not have the confidence to deal with an outer mansion master. Hai Zoming's mind was racing, but he did not slow down. In the night sky, a bright light shone in the east, south, west, and north. Vast starlight fell. He directly communicated with the Four Saints Tower. When a goshawk hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength. Although Hai Zoming was confident that he could easily kill Jiang Wang, he would not be careless and give his opponent a chance. For an outer mansion peak cultivator, what did 50 miles mean? When Jiang Wang discovered Hai Zoming, he was still 50 miles away. When he turned into a flaming meteor and flew toward the West Camel Peak, Hai Zoming's tall figure had already appeared in his field of vision. He arrived in a flash. The Four Saints Tower's starlight supported him, and he immediately took out his magic tool. A dragon's roar faintly sounded in the air. The shadow of a divine dragon flashed and caught up with the flaming meteor. Hai Zoming's most powerful magic tool, the dragon imprisoning rope. It would bind anyone who touched it, and even ghosts would not be able to escape. Just as the dragon imprisoning rope was about to capture its target, Jiang Wang leaped out of his flaming meteor form. A pitch-black chain suddenly drilled out of the void and collided with the dragon imprisoning rope. What a coincidence, what a rush. The dragon imprisoning chain. It was one of the 10 most famous chains of legalism. If one mastered it, it would naturally be on par with the dragon imprisoning rope. However, Jiang Wang was only a beginner. Thus, the dragon imprisoning chain, which was specially designed to bind people, was immediately bound. However, Jiang Wang lost the dragon imprisoning rope because of this. This was a countermeasure that Jiang Wang had planned in advance. At the same time, his body seemed to become weightless and directly fell from the sky. Jiang Wang's body landed, and the sound of his sword rang out. This was the West Camel Peak. The flaming meteor was his fastest speed, and, at the same time, it was a warning to the front. Chapter 6:12. The dragon imprisoning rope was avoided, and Hai Zoming felt uneasy. Jiang Wang shouldn't have known about the effects of the dragon imprisoning rope. Was he prepared, or was his fighting talent really so great that he instinctively made the best choice? But at his level of cultivation, such emotions couldn't sway his will. He had been going all out from the start, with the support of the 4 sacred buildings. When the dragon imprisoning rope missed, he immediately drew on the power of the stars and pressed down with his palm. He didn't care about Jiang Wang's preparations. He directly used force to break the technique, using his momentum to suppress him. The power of the stars used by the outer building realm was similar to the power Jiang Wang used on his swordsmanship, but it was also different. The similarity was that both could be considered the power of the stars. The difference was that Jiang Wang used pure star power in the life and death chess, while the power accumulated in Xingyue Plain was Aliyah star power. On the other hand, outer building experts used the power of their own Saint Tower, which stood in the distant starry sky. The latter was more independent, more flexible, and, of course, more powerful. When this palm pressed down, a giant hand of starlight slammed down, directly locking down all the escape routes Jiang Wang could take. But it was unclear whether his hand pressed down first or the sword whistled first. Perhaps it happened at the same time, and they should have collided. Perhaps the sword was too fast, or this sword was unique and unpredictable. There was a sword that came from the east. It cut through the night sky, cut through the stars, cut through the Azure Dragon sacred building, and went straight for the back of Hai Zongming's head. This was the so-called spring-slaying Azure Dragon. There was a sword that came from the west. Its killing intent was biting cold, shattering the light of the White Tiger's sacred building and going straight for Hai Zongming's heart. This was the so-called golden-slaying White Tiger. There was a sword that came from the south. Proud and blazing, it broke the projection of the Vermilion Bird sacred building, intending to cut Hai Zongming in two from the left. This was the so-called fire-slaughtering Vermilion Bird. There was a sword that came from the north. It was majestic and heavy, directly suppressing the Black Tortoise sacred building. From the right, the sword fell straight down, about to crush it into meat paste. This was the so-called annihilating Black Tortoise. How strong was the swordsmanship that once stood at the pinnacle of the era? When he was outside Qingyang town, he didn't know who his opponent was. He had only laid down the sword formation based on the possible danger in Jia City. The sword reached the inner mansion. This time, he clearly knew that his opponent was at the peak of the outer tower. He had enough time to prepare, and he could use the strongest killing move that he could use in his current realm. Spring slaying the Azure Dragon, Gold slaying the White Tiger, Fire slaughtering the Vermilion Bird, and Destruction destroying the Black Tortoise. This was the sword Dao of solipsism that could annihilate the outer tower's four-killing sword. It was known as the sword breaking the four divisions. Due to his cultivation, he was unable to move forward at all. It was just a temporary evolution with the help of the sword formation and the flying swords themselves. But as the sword whistled, Hai Zongming's expression changed. The killing power that had erupted in an instant was enough to make him gasp in amazement, especially when it had forcefully cut off his connection with the Four Saint Star Tower. He had long known that Jiang Wang's swordsmanship was outstanding, but he didn't know that he had such a sword formation, which vaguely resembled the secret art of ancient flying swords. Although he couldn't defeat him, he was already terrifyingly strong. He was indeed worthy of being praised as a proud son of heaven. Hai Zongming sighed in his heart. When he was young, he was far from this. However, this alone was not enough to erase his many years of accumulation. Talent was important, but hard work and time were also indispensable. Hai Zongming stood in the air, his entire body stretched taut like a fishing rod erected between heaven and earth. This rod had no line, and space and time were its line. This rod had no hook, and everything had to be caught by it. This was the #1 technique of the offshore islands, the secret art of the fishing sea tower, the fishing dragon technique. Even with Hai Zongming's cultivation, he hadn't mastered this technique, and he was far from being able to fish a real dragon. However, as soon as he used this technique, the four flying swords that were fiercely attacking him instantly lost their balance. They suddenly turned halfway, and the tips of the swords tilted upwards. The scene was like four fishes that had been caught, and they were helpless and powerless to struggle. Hai Zongming raised his hand, as if he had caught a fish and tossed it ashore. The four flying swords shot up into the sky, but they had only flown a short distance before dispersing. They were originally formed by sword shadows, so they were really defeated when they were defeated. Hai Zongming didn't care about them, and the connection with the Four Saints Tower had been restored. Although he had the advantage, he was still very cautious. He wrapped the stellar force around him to protect himself, and then pounced downward. But there was no one in his field of vision. Where was Jiang Wang's shadow? He secretly used many secret techniques, but still couldn't find any trace of him. It was as if Jiang Wang had completely left, or perhaps he had never appeared. At this moment, Jiang Wang was hiding in the red mirror, and the mirror was hidden in Xiang Qian's chest. Xiang Qian himself was wearing the invisibility robe. The invisibility robe itself was flawless, and it was personally reinforced by Yingguan. Even a divine arrival realm cultivator couldn't see through it, let alone Hai Zongming. In fact, this invisibility robe was one of Jiang Wang's escape routes. If he couldn't defeat his opponent, he planned to use the invisibility robe to escape. Jiang Wang, let's talk. Hai Zongming suddenly said loudly. He wrapped the stellar force of the Four Saints Tower around him, and while his defense was stable, he took out the finger chi compass to confirm that Jiang Wang was still nearby. How long can you maintain this state? Do you know about the finger chi compass? He waved the treasure in his hand. Even if I can't find you, I can still follow you. You can't escape. I don't want to kill you, really. I just want to take back what belongs to me. He put away the finger chi compass. Do you know who I am? As he spoke, he observed every inch of the West Camel Peak. I am Hai Zongming, Hu Xiaoming, who died at your hands, was my personal disciple. Don't misunderstand, I'm not here to avenge him. I can overlook the fact that you killed him, as long as you return what belongs to me. That's a mirror. You have an impression of it, right? It's not very useful to you, and you've had it for a while. Its use is limited, right? He guessed that with Jiang Wang's cultivation, he couldn't have explored the red makeup mirror too deeply. But to me, it has a deep meaning. It's the only thing my late wife left behind. It reminds me of her for the rest of my life. Hai Zongming's tone was sorrowful. That traitorous disciple of Hu Xiaoming stole this mirror when I wasn't paying attention. I only found out recently that it was him, and that's why I came to find you. This item is too important to me, so I acted somewhat hastily. But we can talk about it. Can we talk about it? I'm willing to use more valuable treasures to exchange for it. Secret techniques, Dao techniques, and artifacts. Jiang Wang, what do you want? I believe you don't lack anything, but can you understand an old man who misses his late wife? The rest of my life is long, but I'll never be able to see her again. This is my only wish. Hai Zongming spoke with such sincerity. If not for the fact that Jiang Wang knew from Cheng Gongsheng that he was focused on cultivation and never married, he would have believed him. The red makeup mirror was obviously not his late wife's item. It was one of the earliest remains of a seafloor that Hu Xiaoming had discovered. After Jiang Wang discovered it by accident, he helped in the name of master and disciple. In the end, he took all the benefits and only gave Hu Xiaoming a few scraps. He thought that it was very reasonable. With Hu Xiaoming's own strength, he couldn't even break through the restrictions. But he didn't expect that Hu Xiaoming was not easy to deal with. Hu Xiaoming appeared to be respectful and submissive to him, but in reality, he secretly took away the best reward. If not for the fact that he found important clues later on, he would probably still be in the dark, thinking that he had everything under control and was the biggest winner. Fabricating a story about his late wife's item was actually not to win Jiang Wang's trust. It was just to stir up his emotions and destroy his concealment, so that he could find traces of him. Of course, it would be better if Jiang Wang could believe him. Unfortunately, he was only met with silence. The silent West Camel Peak. Chapter 613. The long silence on the West Camel Peak caused Hai Zongming to lose his patience. Jiang Wang, we could have settled this peacefully, but you have to make the situation so ugly. As his voice fell, Hai Zongming's hands were already stretched out horizontally. The sound of tides suddenly rang out from the West Camel Peak. There were no rivers near the Camel Peak, so where did the tides come from? But the sound of tides became clearer, stronger, and stronger. It originated from underground. Hai Zongming communicated with the underground river and used a secret technique to move it. He was not willing to use this method, because this kind of thing that completely changed the local landscape could easily cause the dissatisfaction of the local powerhouses. But he was even more unwilling to stay here and waste time with Jiang Wang. After all, this was not the offshore archipelago, and it was not where his roots were. The longer he wasted time, the more likely things would change. So he could not care so much. Fortunately, there were no major powers near the Camel Peak. As long as he ended the battle quickly, it should not cause too much trouble. The closer the sound of tides came, the more urgent it became. It was like an earth dragon turning over, causing the mountain peak to shake. Finally, a small water column broke through the ground and shot up into the sky. Like a war drum during a great war, when the drum sounded, thousands of soldiers and horses would rush out. After the first small water column appeared, it had already triggered a war. More and more water columns were created. The entire West Camel Peak was filled with fountains, and the West Camel Peak actually began to shake. An entire underground river passed through the Earth's veins and rushed out of the ground, directly destroying the mountain's roots. Haizoming wanted to cause a landslide and turn this place into a country of water for a short time. He believed that no matter what method Jiang Wang used to hide his tracks, he would not be able to remain hidden under such a change. When the time came, the ubiquitous water would give him an unobstructed perception, and Jiang Wang and Xiang Qianqian could not wait any longer. The invisibility cloak deceived vision, and Yingguan's method deceived spiritual sense. But the invisibility cloak could not directly erase the existence of the user. Haizoming's method of covering everything was indeed a good way to deal with the invisibility cloak. But Jiang Wang did not plan to wait any longer. Because he had already confirmed the accuracy of the information and had a deep understanding of Haizoming's strength. If he waited any longer, the killers from hell would come. At that time, he would have no choice but to cut his flesh. That huge sum of money would make Jiang Wang poor overnight. When Haizoming took control of the underground river and the West Camel Peak began to collapse, a flying sword suddenly leapt out. It came so suddenly, yet so naturally, like a fish leaping out of the sea, like moonlight spilling over the world. It was cold, silver, and dazzling. It had a unique edge and was incomparably fierce. In an instant, it pierced through the collapsed rocks and appeared in front of Haizoming. When this sword was unleashed, it was as if everything in the world had faded away. Everything had disappeared, and only this sword remained. The sword was pointed between his eyebrows. Haizoming immediately noticed this sword, and with his tyrannical cultivation base, he quickly broke away from the lock of the sword. Outside the sharp edge of the flying sword, he saw the owner of the flying sword. It was a slovenly man with a dispirited appearance. It was inconsistent with the description, not Jiang Wang. So the one who triggered the sword formation was this person? Then where is Jiang Wang? Haizoming's vigilance rose to the highest level, but he didn't show it on his face. He just opened his right hand, and a whirlpool of water formed in front of his palm. The core of the whirlpool was dark. This technique was called ocean whirlpool. Whirlpools in the sea were often connected to unknown places, hence the name of this technique. As long as the water element reached a certain level, the attack would be diverted by this technique and shared by the water. His triggering of the underground river's eruption had already met the requirements of this technique. The flying sword fell irretrievably into the ocean whirlpool. At this moment, a youth with a resolute gaze appeared behind him. His hands were already forming a seal, and his aura was imposing. He was about to attack. Haizoming suddenly turned around. Caught you. The Tao technique that had been secretly accumulating power for a long time immediately exploded. Countless water droplets connected into countless bead threads, instantly enveloping the youth and cutting him into countless pieces. Broken shadow? Haizoming was shocked. He immediately sensed the threat and hurriedly turned around again. He then saw Jiang Wang's true body leap out in front of the dispirited man. When he leapt out, his sword also leapt out. This was an irretrievably heroic sword in the twilight of the setting sun. At the same time that he saw it, it was already in front of him. Jiang Wang first used the forward sword to attack head-on, and then used the illusion of the red-masked mirror to disguise his attack. He distracted Haizoming's attention twice in a row in order to create an opportunity for himself to kill. This opportunity was fleeting, and he undoubtedly grasped it perfectly. At this moment, Haizoming still reacted. His right hand took the initiative to leave the control of the ocean whirlpool, but immediately clenched tightly. The wind rose. It seemed to be a gentle breeze blowing by. However, it was fierce and cold, and it instantly changed the environment. Boundless and endless wild winds blew from all directions. This seemingly complicated battle happened in the blink of an eye. The West Camel Peak was still collapsing, and the fountain was still surging. However, when the wind blew, the fountain was immediately cut off. This technique was so domineering. Before it was completely activated, it actually cleared away other Dao techniques to create an environment for itself. This was Hai Zongming's strongest Dao technique, an existence that was like a trump card, the Blue Azure 9 kills. The Blue Azure Wind had 9 kills, and it could destroy heaven and earth. This technique could be said to be incomparably powerful. Ordinary experts, after going through a lot of trouble and suddenly encountering this technique in the midst of killing blow, would inevitably suffer grievances. However, Jiang Wang was already aware of this. Moreover, the magnificent Chongxian Chu Liang, the vicious butcher, had given him a way to break this technique with his experience as a supreme expert. However, Jiang Wang didn't follow Chongxian Chu Liang's instructions because he had an even simpler method. The man arrived with the sword. A blue bead appeared in the raging wild winds. He took out the wind-stilling bead. He had obtained it from the Seven Stars Tower's planet Een World, in the stomach of that enormous, nameless sandworm. This bead had no other use, and its only use was to calm the wind. Of course, it wasn't enough to completely destroy Hai Zongming's strongest Dao technique, even if it was naturally countered. However, when it appeared, the raging wild winds stilled for a moment. When the Blue Azure 9 kills was activated, it was forcibly stopped for a moment. At this moment, Jiang Wang sheathed his sword and pushed forward with his palm. Flames suddenly rose. The Starfire secret manual opened. The Fire Origin totem opened. The power of the totem and the power of the Aliyah star were superimposed. The strongest Samadhi true fire to date was unleashed without reservation. The flames pounced on Hai Zongming's body, expanded, and then retracted. The entire process took less than a breath. In the midst of this, the phantom image of a tide flashed, and then immediately disappeared. It was so brief that it seemed as if it had never appeared. That was probably Hai Zongming's method of protection. When the Samadhi true fire retracted, a huge, empty space appeared. Hai Zongming's figure was no longer there, and there weren't even any mountain rocks. Only white ashes rustled down. It was impossible to tell which was bone dust and which was stone dust. Jiang Wang stretched out his right hand, allowing the Samadhi true fire to fall into his palm and return it to his inner residence. Only now did the West Camel Peak completely collapse. At the same time, a black-robed man wearing a Yama mask appeared in the sky, his back facing the moon. Chapter 614. He watched as an outer tower peak powerhouse turned into ashes in a flash. Although news of Jiang Wang had been coming from Qingyang town, this was the first time he had seen Jiang Wang's supernatural power with his own eyes. He knew Jiang Wang was not the same as before, but he didn't know he was already this powerful. However, this kind of shock didn't last long because the assassin of the doorless hell had arrived. It was a person of average height. Because the black robe was too wide, it was impossible to see his background. He was suspended high in the sky with his back to the moon. A powerful pressure naturally poured down. His face was covered by a Yama mask. On the door, there were 3 words, King Chujiang. King Chujiang, ranked second among the 10 kings of hell. Not much time had passed, but felt very long. You want to steal my business? As soon as the voice came out, Jiang Wang realized that the second in command of the doorless hell, King Chujiang, was actually a woman. Her voice was as cold as ice. Among all the voices that had left a deep impression on Jiang Wang, it was somewhat similar to Li Fengyao's. But if Li Fengyao's voice was cold, arrogant, and distant, then her voice was cold and bone-piercing. When he handed over the deposit, Jiang Wang didn't know beforehand who would come. He thought it would be Yingguan. After all, Yingguan hadn't been separated from him for long and should be very close. But the one who came was King Chujiang, whom he had never dealt with before. Erecting 4-star towers was already the peak of the outer tower cultivation. But cultivation wasn't the same as fighting strength. They were both in the outer tower, but the feeling this King Chu Jiang gave off was many times more terrifying than Hai Zoming. At least Jiang Wang dared to fight Hai Zoming, but he didn't think he had any chance in front of King Chu Jiang. Actually, the person who announced this business of your organization was me, Jiang Wang said quickly. King Chu Jiang looked at him without saying anything. Jiang Wang continued to explain, "It's like this. Hai Zoming chased after me. For safety reasons, I immediately issued a mission to your organization. But I didn't expect that before your organization started the mission, he had already caught up to me. I could only fight with my life on the line. Fortunately, I won. If the person who came was Ying Guan, he might be able to openly state his thoughts. That said, his instincts told him that it would be best to keep a low profile in the face of this unfamiliar Yama King. Therefore, the mission was automatically canceled. Of course, I know the rules. You don't have to return the deposit." King Chu Jiang still didn't say anything, and he still looked at Jiang Wang calmly. Jiang Wang knew that he had the intention of using the doorless hell as a cover. He wanted to ensure his own safety and didn't want to spend too much money. It could be said that he was in the wrong first. Therefore, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous when facing King Chu Jiang's unpredictable emotions. Especially for an organization like No Door to Hell, it wasn't a place that was easy to talk to. After thinking for a while, he braced himself and said, "Or do you still need an appearance fee?" He felt a bit of heartache. He had just used the true Samadhi fire to burn Hai Zoming to ashes, and he had not been able to keep any of the treasures on him. There was only a dragon-imprisoning rope that was entangled with the chains. Of course, it was just heartache. There was no room for regret. There was no room for regret. Facing a cultivator from the 4th floor like Hai Zoming, even if he had already known all of Hai Zoming's information in advance, and had completely targeted him, he still couldn't possibly hold back. Huh. King Chu Jiang suddenly laughed. She seemed to be particularly stingy with laughter. She only laughed for a short while, and then quickly stopped. She allowed that bone-piercing cold feeling to continue to spread. King Qing Guang said that you were an interesting person. You really are interesting, she said. Jiang Wang felt a huge weight lifted from his heart. Since Ying Guan had communicated with her, then No Door to Hell shouldn't bother about it anymore. There wasn't anything worth fussing about. After all, he had also spent money. 500,000 primeval stones. He didn't need to do anything. He just had to make a trip. If someone used this price to hire him, he was willing to run every day and spend Jiang Ainan's entire life of extravagant spending. Then this matter, Jiang Wang probed. It ends here. King Chu Jiang didn't say anything more. He turned around and abruptly left just like how he had come. Phew, she let out a long breath. Being with you is really frightening. I'm just a nobody in the soaring dragon realm. Why do I have to suffer this kind of shock? In the sky above the collapsed West Camel Peak, Jiang Wang turned to look at him. Just as Xiang Chan said, he was only in the soaring dragon realm, but he still didn't reject Jiang Wang's suggestion to work together to kill Hai Zoming. Could it be that in his heart, he was not willing to be lonely? It's all thanks to you. Your sword arts are very strong, very strong, Jiang Wang said very seriously. Among all the sword arts I've seen, it's number one. Actually, regarding this battle with Hai Zoming, even though there was a difference in realms and strength, he definitely wouldn't be a match for him if he met force without any preparation. However, after analyzing Hai Zoming's information and making a targeted strategy, Jiang Wang had a certain degree of confidence. It had to be known that even Chongxian Chu Liang had been invited by Cheng Gung Sheng to give a targeted opinion. Hai Zoming's battle choice was almost a dead end. The reason why he used the identity of a friend to invite Xiangchen to help was actually to help build his confidence. And Xiangchen's performance really did amaze him again. A soaring dragon realm cultivator was able to exchange blows with an outer building realm cultivator for a short period of time. Even if he had prepared in advance, even if he had set up several sword formations, even if he had borrowed the power of the powerful flying sword itself, even if he hadn't really hurt Hai Zoming, in Jiang Wang's knowledge, there wasn't any sword art that could do this. Was this really the ultimate sword art that suppressed an era? Xiang Chun silently looked at Jiang Wang for a while and read his expectations. You think it's very strong, right? He closed his eyes, and the sharpness from his battle with Hai Zongming dimmed. This is the reason why I'm in despair. Xiang Chun, a soaring dragon realm cultivator, was already so strong. How strong was his invincible, insightful truth realm master? How terrifying was the solipsism, sword Dao of the insightful truth realm? It was such a powerful and terrifying swordsmanship. He still lost without any suspense, without any room for struggle. So he was in despair. Jiang Wang shifted his gaze away from the front of his body and looked at the collapsed West Camel Peak. Rocks were scattered all over the ground, and the water of the underground river that Hai Zongming had drawn up meandered and flowed, forming muddy ponds everywhere. For some reason, he suddenly thought of Yuheng Peak. That day, Yuheng Peak collapsed in front of him. That was his choice. It was also that day that he saw with his own eyes the cruel side of this world. Such a majestic mountain peak only needed an instant to collapse. However, it took an endless amount of time for it to accumulate. Jiang Wang said, the insightful truth realm, and even the realms above it, are all cultivated from the wandering pulse realm. He didn't give a long speech to enlighten Xiang Chun, and only said these two sentences. Then he patted Xiang Chen's shoulder. Hurry up and run. Moreover, he took the lead and flew away towards the west. Xiang Chun stared blankly for a moment before he reacted. Although there weren't any major powers in the vicinity of Camel Peak Mountain, half of it had collapsed and the underground river had rushed out. The permanent change in the terrain would definitely attract some people's attention. This was the central region, and the cultivators of the central region were famous for their arrogance. If they didn't run faster, they would inevitably encounter trouble. So, you should at least bring me along. I'm just a nameless cultivator of the soaring dragon realm. Chapter 6:15. From a Yun nation to the Qi nation, they passed through 17 nations and 3 sex territories. When they returned to the Yun nation from the Qi nation, they adjusted their route and only bypassed the Yun nation. The distance traveled was further than before, but the time taken was shortened by a lot. After all, the white-haired youth who walked down the cloud ascension stairs was only in the heavenly cycle realm. The current him was already at the inner palace of the divine ability, and he could be considered a powerhouse anywhere. Of course, because they passed by many forces along the way, they couldn't travel at the fastest speed. Jiang Wang's personality was not flamboyant, and the less trouble, the better. They also had the ability to protect themselves most of the time, so there were no twists and turns along the way. On the 24th day of the 10th month of the 3918th year of the Tao calendar, Jiang Wang defeated Lei Zhanqian and became famous in the Qi realm. On the same day, he quietly left Linzi alone with a sword. On the 21st day of the winter, Jiang Wang already had 1 foot in the Yun nation's territory. In the great illusionary realm, the inner mansion realm ranking was still not in the top 100. Of course, this was related to Jiang Wang not going to the sword discourse arena many times. But at the same time, Jiang Wang could also feel that after reaching the inner mansion realm, the speed of completing battle matches in the sword discourse arena had obviously slowed down. This should be able to explain that the number of inner mansion realm cultivators in the great illusionary realm was far less than the previous realms. And his blessed land had also dropped to the 38th place, Shaoyao Mountain. The number of rooms in the first inner mansion that he explored had now reached the 3,000th room. He could no longer find any secret treasures, but it was always a good thing to know more about himself. The so-called cultivators were nothing more than exploring the outside world and exploring themselves inwardly. After passing the overturning sea tribulation, the power of the soul had greatly increased, and the efficiency of exploring the rooms in the inner mansion had also greatly increased. Although the further he went, the more difficult it was. If the soul went too deep, it was easy to be unable to turn back. In short, there was a stable improvement in swordsmanship and Taoist techniques, but overall, because he had not opened the second inner mansion, there was no qualitative improvement. And the way forward, he woke up and slept, walking and stopping, was the same as before. There were no changes. He was still unshaven and dispirited. To be precise, he was more unkempt than before. After all, it was inevitable that he was covered in dust from tens of thousands of miles. He was also someone who didn't wash up much. There were many mountains in the Yun Nation, and the mountains were extremely tall. Turning a mountain into a city was not a great miracle in the world of cultivation, but Jiang Wang had never seen a country built on a mountain before. All the big mountain cities in the Yun Nation were connected by ropeways. The innermost capital city was directly connected to the four main cities by a rainbow bridge. The residents of the entire Yun Nation lived in the Misty Mountains. When Jiang Wang first came to the Yun Nation, he was shocked by this. However, after traveling for so long, she no longer had that feeling of amazement when she arrived at the Yun Nation. After all, he had seen too many magnificent things. Just the Xiankong Temple alone was more magnificent than these mountain cities. After arriving in the Yun country, Jiang Wang didn't go to Yun City immediately. Instead, he found an inn to rest. Along the way, all the inns and restaurants Jiang Wang booked were of average quality. Only the inn he chose in the Yun Nation should be the best in the entire city. Moreover, he asked for 2 superior rooms, and the price was shocking. The Yun Nation's commerce was prosperous, and all the pastimes were expensive to the extreme. Of course, this wasn't what puzzled Xiang Qian. Didn't you want to see your sister? Why did you stop here? The surprise I prepared hasn't arrived yet, so I have to wait for another day. Jiang Wang smiled happily. Moreover, I'm going to see it soon. I can't be dirty. I have to burn incense, take a bath, and change into a clean set of clothes. The expression on Xiang Qian's face was unclear whether it was envy or jealousy. He curled his lips. Damn fastidious. After saying that, he returned to his room. But that night, when Jiang Wang went out to arrange the surprise, he happened to bump into Xiang Qian returning to his room. He saw him wearing thick clothes, with a jade pendant hanging from his waist, and his hair neatly tied up. Even the stubble on his face had been carefully trimmed. Although his skills weren't very good, he seemed to have been completely reborn. At first glance, he looked a lot younger. Of course, upon closer inspection, he still had that dispirited dead fish face. Jiang Wang looked at him funnily. Damn fastidious? Huh. Xiang Qian walked into his room with his head held high and arrogantly closed the door with his heel. In this world, reunion was sometimes a luxury. For some people, it wasn't just a luxury, but it was also fragile, cold, and unattainable. Sometimes they would rather it be a luxury. That way, no matter the cost, at least there would be a day when it would be realized. No matter how expensive it was, at least there was a possibility of redemption. However, anyone who was clear-headed knew that in this world, the meaning of the word rather was generally untenable. A huge warship sailed on the vast and mighty Qing River. Ever since the Zhuang Emperor ascended to True Cave, the Qing River Underwater Prefecture lived an honest life. In the past, the entire 800 miles of Qing River was the private land of the Shui tribe. Regardless of whether it was a merchant ship or the navy of the Zhuang country, they had to report to the Zhuang country. Now, this was no longer necessary. Every mountain, water, grass, and tree in the Zhuang country completely belonged to the Zhuang country. Therefore, the soldiers of the Zhuang country should be able to come and go freely in any place in the country. Of course, if one wasn't afraid of death, perhaps one could use the area of Maplewood City to refute this statement. After all, there was land in the Zhuang country that didn't belong to the Zhuang country. Those are the wounds that had been carved out, the ugly scars that were exposed in this country. Unfortunately, there were very few people who weren't afraid of death. No one had ever mentioned this before. Moreover, the white bone path had disappeared without a trace. It was almost completely razed. The life memorial tablet erected outside Maplewood City seemed to be enough of a consolation. This was a thriving place. This was a country that was growing rapidly, and everyone was happy. After all, those who probably wouldn't be happy were no longer here. The warship on the surface of Qing River carried the soldiers that had just retreated from the Zhuang-Mo border. Ever since Zhuang Gaoxian personally took action with the power of True Cave and forcibly ceded 10 cities of the Mo kingdom, there had been no more large-scale wars at the Zhuang-Mo border. However, small-scale conflict had never stopped. After all, these 10 cities had just been ceded not long ago. It wasn't enough for the Mo kingdom's soldiers to get used to this fact. With the secret support of the Qin kingdom, the Mo kingdom didn't have to worry about a large-scale invasion from the Zhuang country. There was no need to prohibit small-scale conflicts. In fact, the Mo kingdom's imperial court wouldn't prohibit it at all. The humiliation that the Mo kingdom's soldiers and civilians had suffered needed an outlet. Every time a border conflict killed 1 or 2 soldiers of the Zhuang country, the Mo kingdom's people would be happy for a long time. From a broader perspective, the continuous small-scale conflicts between the Mo kingdom and the Zhuang country were exactly what the Qin kingdom was happy to see. They were even secretly pushing for this. The Qin kingdom made a lot of money through its support of the Mo kingdom. At the same time, it wanted to restrict the Zhuang country's space for growth. Of course, this couldn't be said openly. On the deck, a general sat cross-legged alone. He was a bearded general who looked quite old. At the moment, he wasn't on the battlefield. However, he was still wearing his armor. The entire armor was dark red. It was caused by the repeated soaking of blood. It couldn't be washed off. The sky was bright and the water was clear. The general was silent. He sat alone on the deck in silence. However, when they passed a fork in the waterway, he suddenly stood up and walked back to the cabin without saying a word. The deputy general who was guarding the side of the ship sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that his general couldn't bear to see his homeland. Chapter 6:16. General Yang, let's go play on the shore. A few soldiers jostled each other and greeted the deputy general. These soldiers smiled happily, but each of them had a fierce temperament. It was obvious that they were soldiers who could fight. The military had strict regulations. Now that they had withdrawn from the battlefield, they could be more relaxed and unrestrained. Yang Yin could understand. Wait until we pass this section of the river. I will allow you to play for a day in the next city. After that, we will return to Zhejiang County directly. The soldiers were disappointed, but no one disagreed. After all, they were the Zhejiang Xian armor, the most elite army in the entire Zhuang country. Obeying orders was already an instinct. After arranging the soldiers, Yang Yin bent down and entered the cabin. As expected, he saw his general sitting in the corner. He did not light a lamp or speak. You should have a good rest this time. The others have rotated more than 10 times and avoided the front lines. You, on the other hand, refused to come down from the front lines. If General Duan did not order you to go back to Zhejiang, you would have killed your way into Dingwu City. The General Duan he was talking about was the main general of the Zhejiang Xian armor, Duan Li. Dingwu City was the capital of the Mo kingdom. The Mo kingdom worshipped the military, so even the name of the capital was filled with murderous intent. Yang Yin wanted a joke to lighten the mood, but it was obviously not that funny. At least, the bearded Du Yehu did not laugh out loud. To me, resting on the battlefield is the only way to rest. Du Yehu said in a muffled voice, "We are not allowed to kill too many beasts in Zhejiang County. There is nothing left to kill." Yang Yin had a headache. We are soldiers, so of course, we are destined to be on the battlefield. However, no one is made of iron. After years of killing, how can we endure it? General Duan thinks highly of you and transferred you back to rest because he was afraid that you would be corrupted by the murderous intent. Du Yehu looked at him impatiently. You're doing it again. Okay. I won't say any more. Yang Yin raised his hands in surrender. When Du Yehu's mood improved, he took the opportunity to say, whether you are willing or not, you have been transferred back. As the saying goes, military orders cannot be disobeyed. Since we have not returned to the base and General Duan can't control us, how about we go to the shore and play? How about we find a few beauties and listen to some songs? He eagerly urged. You have nowhere to spend your salary anyway. You've earned so much money that you can't just drink it all. We might as well let our brothers take advantage of it. Yang-in. Du-Yehu leaned his head against the bulkhead. Through the thick wooden planks, he couldn't see the scenery outside the cabin, but he knew where he was. Where was this close to? Did you hear that? He asked. Hear what? There are some voices that keep shouting in my ears. Yang-in heard the sound of waves crashing against the side of the warship and the sound of soldiers walking back and forth on the deck, but she did not hear any shouts. There wasn't even a single cry. So where did the rest come from? He swallowed his saliva and asked, What are you shouting about? They asked. Du-Yehu furrowed his thick brows in pain. They asked me, Why aren't you here? Without waiting for Yang-in to say anything else, Du-Yehu suddenly sat up. Were the bandits, pirates, or any other villains nearby? Quick! Yang-in quivered and quickly took out a small booklet. He flipped through it hurriedly. Go ahead for 30 miles on the waterway and go straight for 40 miles from the East Bank. There's a bandit camp. It's the training for the disciples of the Tao Academy in the city this year. Before he could finish, Du-Yehu had already grabbed a military knife, lifted the curtain, and left alone. Yang-in sat in the cabin and stared blankly for a while before he put away the booklet. Of course, he knew what Du-Yehu was doing. He was almost used to this kind of thing. But what worried him was that Du-Yehu's condition seemed to be getting worse and worse. It was getting harder and harder for him to control his killing intent. Yang-in sat cross-legged in silence. Du-Yehu left the ship alone and flew far away. The warship traveled at a constant speed on Qing River. The water reflected the sky and the clouds. The ship traveled on the water as if it was traveling on the clouds. On the clouds, Jiang-Ainen was fretting. She felt that Sister Qingyu was very strange today. She smiled when she saw her, but she didn't know what she was smiling about. Did I forget to wipe my mouth after eating a drumstick? Jiang-Ainen wiped her mouth. It was clean and refreshing. Yes, not only Sister Qingyu, but everyone else was also very strange. That round-faced, playful senior sister Little Wang. She also had a very gentle biological sister, Senior Sister Wang. Senior Sister Little Wang had been asking about her brother recently. How old was he? Was he good-looking? Of course, her brother was the most good-looking person in the world. She also asked if her brother had any meat dishes, but Sister Qingyu pulled her ear and chased her away. What's a meat dish? Meat dishes? These people were really strange. The little Jiang-Ainen felt very tired. There were so many people that she had to worry about, big and small, a basket of things. She had to bear troubles that she shouldn't have to bear at her age. She really wanted to say, Can't you guys be a little more busy? Do you guys only know how to play every day? Don't you need to cultivate or study? I, Jiang-Ainen, have to practice martial arts every day. I even have to prepare a large copybook. And that annoying senior brother. He was originally called Senior Brother Mo Liang, but he was too annoying, so he changed his name to Senior Brother Annoying Ghost. He had appeared in front of her 7 or 8 times today, so much so that her eyes were blurry. One moment, he was holding this food. The next moment, he was holding that food, apologizing profusely. Do you think I, Jiang-Ainen, am a pig? You want to coax me by giving me some food? I ate your food, but I still haven't forgiven you. Oomph. And Senior Brother Fong. Actually, Senior Brother Fong's surname isn't Fong, but his face is very square, so I call him Senior Brother Fong. Today, Senior Brother Fong suddenly came over and said that women never complain and let bygones be bygones. But I've already told Uncle Yi about him snatching my drumstick. That's not calling me complaining. Uncle Yi secretly appointed me as the supervisor. I'm reporting my work. They always secretly roast snow cranes to eat, so they can't blame me if they get beaten. I can't bend the law for personal gain. The more Jiang-Ainen thought about it, the more tired she felt. Her small eyebrows were knitted together. I should write a letter to my brother at night and ask him what to do. Did I get discovered when I was reporting my work? They are so strange today. Do they want to beat me up? Thinking of this, Jiang-Ainen looked at each of her senior brothers and sisters, and the more she looked, the more she felt that the situation was not good. Forget it. I'd better go hide at Uncle Ye's place first. Although Uncle Yi always likes to tell those stories that have been repeated many times, it's safe at his place. Her senior brothers and sisters are all afraid of him. Having made up her mind, Jiang Ainen turned around and ran with her short legs. Hey! She bumped into a ball of softness. Elder sister Qingyu suddenly appeared in front of her, and Jiang Ainen bumped into her arms. You're in such a hurry. Where are you going? Yi Qingyu said angrily. Jiang Ainen rubbed against her, then raised her head and blinked her eyes. I'm going to play chess with Uncle Yi. Using chess pieces to arrange characters is also called playing chess. Two people going back and forth, you placing the character Jiang and I placing the character Yi, is also called playing chess. Yi Qingyu was a bit helpless, but still said, playing chess with an old man is too boring. She smiled. I'll take you to a fun place. How about it? Where? Jiang Ainen suddenly became spirited. You'll know when we get there, Yi Qingyu said mysteriously. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Jiang Ainen subconsciously wanted to agree, but suddenly remembered the terrifying guess from before, so she cleverly asked, just the two of us? Of course. Yi Qingyu was a bit confused. Who else do you want to bring along? No one. Jiang Ainen was relieved and clenched her small fist. Let's go now. P.S. I hope that the readers can feel Di Yehu's heart when they see the first half. When they see the second half, they can smile. If a novel can make people feel sad and happy, it should be considered a success. I think the definition of success is not only the result of subscriptions. Not only does the website not recommend a novel. Of course, a successful novel does need a lot of subscriptions. Come to Chidian Chinese Network to subscribe to the original version. Chapter 617. There were many mountains in Yun country, and the most well-known mountains were naturally where the cities were located. Because they had always lived in the mountains, the Yun people were not interested in mountaineering. There were many mountains in Yun country that had not been developed and were in a completely primitive state. Yi Qingyu brought Jiang Ainen to such a nameless mountain. It was not big, nor was it high. It was quiet and unusually mediocre. Jiang Ainen looked at it for a long time with her eyes wide open, but she did not see anything interesting. At this time, the sky was already dark, and this barren mountain was somewhat eerie. Sister Qingyu. Jiang Ainen pulled her hand. Did we come to the wrong place? Yi Qingyu gently put her index finger in front of her lips. Sure, it will be fine after a while, she said. At this time, the moon quietly jumped into the sky. The soft moonlight floated down and covered that beautiful face, floating like a fairy. Jiang Ainen raised her small head and was stunned for a moment. Sister, you are so beautiful. Yi Qingyu bent her index finger and gently scratched her small nose. I will give you less candy in the future. You are so sweet that you are sick of it. No way. Jiang Ainen was anxious. I'm not sweet at all. I am very bitter. Oh. Yi Qingyu deliberately teased her. How bitter? It is as bitter as my brother's fish. Jiang Ainen blurted out. Yi Qingyu froze for a moment and could not help but laugh. It seems that it is really bitter. Although there was no one around, Jiang Ainen still looked around sneakily and then whispered, Sister Qingyu, don't write this in the letter to my brother. Why not? Yi Qingyu asked with a smile. My brother always thought that he was very good at cooking. There was once when eldest junior brother Tang Dun said that his cooking was bad. He was so angry that he made eldest junior brother Tang Dun practice for 6 hours. Jiang Ainen was still young after all. She could not really understand the meaning of death. She knew that Ling He, Zhao Ruqing, Huang Azan, and Tang Dun were all gone, but she only thought that they went on a long trip and would come back in the future. Therefore, she could still naturally mention the names of Tang Dun and the others. Yi Qingyu did not expect Jiang Wang to have such a history. She smiled until her eyes curved. Then your brother is really unreasonable. Jiang Ainen was a little embarrassed again. Actually, I didn't. She could complain once in a while, but she didn't want to badmouth Jiang Wang seriously. Yi Qingyu stopped teasing her and only reminded her, look at the sky. Just as Jiang Ainen raised her head, she saw a beautiful ball of flame whizzing into the sky. Bang! It suddenly exploded and turned into a rain of flowers that filled the sky. Hundreds of purple and thousands of red flowers floated down. Fireworks! Jiang Anan exclaimed in surprise. Immediately after, another ball of flame rushed into the sky. This ball of flame was fiery red and bloomed in the sky, forming a beautiful phoenix. It even flapped its wings a few times before gradually dissipating. After the fiery red phoenix, jade trees bloomed in the sky. It was like a forest of jade carvings that had been moved to the sky by someone. It was like a fairyland that had fallen to the mortal world. The jade tree withered in a flash, following which a flying horse leaped out and left on a colorful cloud. Dazzling and beautiful scenes bloomed in the sky one after another. Colorful lights, competing with each other in beauty. Jiang Anan watched without blinking. She was completely engrossed. Just as she was engrossed in watching, all the magnificence in the night sky suddenly dissipated. The night sky returned to its original appearance. Just when Jiang Anan thought that everything was over, in the next moment, a row of colorful words with flowing flames rushed out and illuminated the sky. Jiang Anan is the cutest person in the world. Ah! Jiang Anan covered her eyes shyly, but her little finger quietly moved out a slit. Then she saw that the row of words had changed again. Jiang Anan is the best sister in the world. And above the night sky, a figure in white clothes that fluttered in the wind came walking on the moon. That was such a familiar figure. Jiang Anan immediately let go of her little hand. She was surprised and happy. Brother, because she was so excited, her voice cracked a little. And then Jiang Wang flew down and hugged Little and in his arms. Yi Qingyu stood to the side and even purposely moved aside a little to give space to the siblings who hadn't seen each other for a long time. She only looked at them with a smile. In the distance, Fang Qiu cast an envious look. Previously, Jiang Wang had been hiding there with him to prepare a surprise for Jiang Anan. Those fireworks were all bought by Jiang Wang and Linzi. They were extremely exquisite and expensive, almost priced in Dao origin stones. At this moment, he stood alone and watched the reunion of the siblings from afar. He was somewhat envious, somewhat jealous, and somewhat indignant. Showing off. But for some reason, his eyes were a little sore. He had no family, and his only family was his master. But they had never hugged each other before, and they would never have the chance to hug each other in the future. And then Jiang Wang hugged Little. His voice was a little choked up. In order to cover up this choking sob, he said, "You seem to have gained weight." Jiang Anan, who had been quietly leaning in her brother's arms, suddenly struggled with all her strength. I didn't. Although she was still a child, she was very sensitive to whether she was fat or not. Jiang Wang laughed out loud. For a moment, he was very happy. He allowed Jiang Anan to break free from his arms and only held her little hand. Do you still remember? At home in Pegasus Alley on the roof. What did you want? Jiang Wang's heart was infinitely soft at this moment, and his voice was also extremely gentle. Jiang Anan didn't say anything. She only nodded vigorously. Jiang Wang hugged her again. With a step, he had already soared into the sky. On that roof, Jiang Wang had promised her that when he mastered Dao techniques in the future, he would fly with her. Jiang Wang remembered clearly what he had promised his sister. The old promise was now fulfilled. Whoosh, whoosh. It was the sound of the wind caused by rapid flight. Jiang Wang hugged Jiang Anan and quickly flew over the mountains. They flew higher and higher, and the stars and moon in the sky were getting closer and closer. Jiang Anan's eyes were filled with excitement, and she kept shouting. The winter moon was cold to begin with, and it was even colder high in the sky. However, Jiang Wang's body emitted a warm heat that wrapped around Jiang Anan perfectly. Although it was a cold night, she didn't feel the slightest bit cold. With his current cultivation, how high could he fly? Jiang Wang had never tested his limits. It was even more impossible for him to take risks when he flew high with Jiang Anan. But at least until now, he still had strength to spare. He felt that he could go a little higher. The more perfect the agreement between them was, the more he could make up for his regret of not being by Jiang Anan's side for so long. Jiang Ainan's excited shouts had stopped for a while. Jiang Wang lowered his head to look at her in his arms. Ainan, are you afraid? Jiang Ainan didn't say anything. Only then did he realize that Jiang Ainan was crying. Her head was buried in his chest, and her body was trembling. She was crying silently and suppressing her emotions. What's wrong? Jiang Wang panicked. What's wrong, Ainan? Tell me what's wrong. Are you not feeling well? As he spoke, he hurriedly flew down again. Sob, sob, sob. Jiang Ainan hugged his waist tightly and wailed at a height of tens of thousands of feet. I thought you didn't want me anymore. Chapter 618. Being abandoned by concubine Song was a trauma that Jiang Ainan could never forget. Jiang Wang had tried his best to give her a home and warmth when they were in Maplewood City. But the role of mother could never be replaced. So she would still read her mother's letters, treasure her gifts, and miss her mother. She missed her very much. But she also understood that her mother didn't want her anymore. Although her brother denied this point, why was it that when they were in school, all the other children had a mother, but she didn't? She had never told her brother about this. She knew that her brother would be sad if she told him. She knew that her brother couldn't create a mother for her. She was close to Qingji because Qingji also didn't have a mother. Although she was young, she understood that she had been abandoned once. She was really afraid of being abandoned. When she was at her most helpless and confused, it was her brother who hugged her. He gave her a home, took her to eat good food, bought her new clothes, let her go to school, doted on her, loved her, and took care of her. She knew that her senior brothers and sisters in the Lingxiao Pavilion were very good to her. But they weren't her brother after all. She knew that her brother had no choice but to leave her in the Yun Nation. She knew that it was very difficult to find Brother Ling He, Brother Ru Cheng, Brother Tang Dun, and Brother Ajan. Her brother must be working very hard. So she was very sensible in the Lingxiao Pavilion and never cried in front of others. But she was still very afraid. She was afraid that her brother would be like her mother, never to return and never to see her again. That was why she was so angry when Mo Liang made that kind of joke. That was why senior brother Mo Liang became the annoying senior brother. Tens of thousands of feet in the sky, Jiang Wang's heart broke as he looked at the crying little Ainan. Her delicate little face was wrinkled from crying. He slowly leaned his head on Jiang Ainan's little shoulder. His voice was calm but firm. Big brother will never abandon you. He repeated, Big brother will never not want you. Do you hear me, Ainan? Infected by this gentle firmness, Jiang Ainan's crying slowly stopped. Brother, yes, my nose is running. Jiang Ainan added, I have a lot of snot. Many thoughts flashed through Jiang Wang's mind in an instant. My new clothes. He was from Cloudy Thought's temple. Forget it, I'm fine, Jiang Wang said. Jiang Ainan smiled through her tears. Brother, what is it? You can really fly. Jiang Wang snorted proudly. Big brother is very powerful. The brother and sister stopped in the air and talked for a long time. When he landed, Yi Qingyu was still waiting at the same place. Fellow Taoist Yi. Jiang Wang smiled at her apologetically. Jiang Wang was rude. He had met Yi Qingyu before and had discussed with her in advance that he would give Jiang Ainan a surprise tonight. The young cultivators of the High Heaven Pavilion had already learned of Jiang Wang's illustrious reputation in the state of Qi from the merchant group. Therefore, Mo Liang hurriedly came to apologize to Jiang Ainan, and that senior martial brother Fong repeatedly emphasized that it was wrong to complain. After all, no one in the younger generation of Yun Nation could match a famous figure in Tianjiao City and Qi City. Yi Qingyu smiled gently. It's okay. I thought you guys would be chatting up there until dawn. She pointed a finger at the sky. Jiang Wang became more and more embarrassed. I thought you went back first. How can I do that? Yi Qingyu pretended to be serious. Jiang Ainan is an excellent disciple of Lingxiao Pavilion. It was not easy to cultivate her until now. I have to watch over her. What if you take her away directly? Jiang Ainan just cried and was a little embarrassed now. She only turned back and stole a glance at Yi Qingyu before continuing to bury her small head in Jiang Wang's chest. Thanks to you. Jiang Wang's tone was sincere, ensuring that Jiang Ainan didn't have to worry about food and clothing was a piece of cake for Yi Qingyu. Making Jiang Ainin live comfortably in Lingxiao Pavilion really showed how much effort she put into it. Jiang Wang's gratitude was definitely not fake. Yi Qingyu waved her hand. I'm the one who should thank you. After Ainin came, everyone was a lot happier. She is our happy fruit. And, halfway through her words, she suddenly turned her head. A dazzling sword light suddenly shot over. Jiang Wang hurriedly reminded her, "It's my friend." But she saw a cultivator standing on the bright sword light. It was Fang Qian, who was dressed particularly well. Sweeping away his decadent temperament in the past, he was riding the sword in the air and riding the wind with an indescribable style. He stepped on the bright flying sword and hovered in front of Jiang Wang, looking at Jiang Ainin's curious big eyes. He flipped his hair back in a very showy manner. He introduced himself. Yes, you didn't see wrong. I am your brother's good friend. My surname is Fang Qian. He should have planned this appearance for a long time. Every detail was in place. Jiang Ainin buried her head back in Jiang Wang's chest. Who is this uncle? Fang Qian touched his stubble, his expression very sad. Jiang Wang felt a little embarrassed for Fang Qian and explained, he is a good friend of your brother's from Qi. Fang Qian, call him brother. Jiang Ainin turned her head and said weakly, Hello, brother Xiang Qian. Yes. Fang Qian hurriedly responded and said happily, It's the first time we meet, so I didn't prepare anything. He looked back at himself, feeling up and down, and found that he really didn't prepare anything. He even asked Jiang Wang for the money to buy new clothes. He thought for a moment and untied a sword-shaped jade pendant from his waist. This little thing is for you as a gift for our first meeting. Yi Qingyu, who was used to seeing wealth, couldn't help but be a little surprised when she saw this jade pendant. Jiang Wang directly stopped him. This is too expensive. Ainin can't accept it. This sword-shaped jade pendant didn't stand out much when it was on his waist, but now that he took it out, its sharp aura could no longer be concealed. It was definitely a treasure. Judging from his background, it might be a treasure passed down from the flying sword era. Xiang Qian's skin wasn't thick enough. If it was Su Xiangqian, if he was in a hurry and didn't prepare anything, he could just pull out a blade of grass from the roadside as a gift. Unlike him, he still had to take out his trump card. Its era has already passed. What's so precious about it? Fang Qian sighed. Take it. Give it to Ainin to protect herself. He put the jade pendant in Ainin's hand. Ainin hurriedly withdrew her small hand and shook her head vigorously. I can't accept it. She looked at Jiang Wang, and for some reason, there was a bit of sadness in her eyes. Jiang Wang patted Ainin, and Ainin reached out to take the jade pendant. Thank you, brother Xiang Qian. Fang Qian smiled with satisfaction and reached out to touch Ainin's small head. Then he turned around on the flying sword and looked at Yi Qingyu. This must be the daughter of the Lingxiao Pavilion Master, Miss Yi Qingyu, right? Yi Qingyu smiled lightly and elegantly. Hello. Fang Qian nodded and didn't say anything else. Jiang Wang suddenly realized at this time. Fang Qian's special grooming probably wasn't just because he was going to see Jiang Wang's sister. It was also because he had come to the Lingxiao Pavilion before with his master. The solipsism of the sword had once shone brightly above the sky. He didn't want to lose face for his master. Chapter 619. In the far north, there was a long desert. No one knew where the end of the desert was. In the desert, there was a devil. For countless years, they had been invading the human world. Legend had it that in ancient times, there was a demon wave that destroyed the world and almost overturned the human world. Fortunately, the sages resisted and saved the human race. The destruction of the demon wave was seen by many as the end of the ancient era. The two most powerful countries in the north were called Japanese Jing and Japanese Mu. Both countries had armies stationed at the border of the desert to suppress the demon wave. Therefore, this desert was often called the barren border. It meant the border of the human race, the boundary between prosperous and barren. The two powerful countries in the northern region competed in all aspects, but they always worked together in the face of the desert. Just this point alone was enough to let people have a glimpse of the horror of the demons. But for most people in the modern world, the demons were just a legend. Because since ancient times, not a single demon had been able to walk out of the desert. Most likely, the only remaining fear people had of the devil was the infamous 9 great devils. At the easternmost part of the desert was endless quicksand. Aside from the endless quicksand, the border of the desert could be divided into 2 halves. The eastern side was the territory of the Mu country, and the western side was the territory of the Jin country. As one of the most powerful countries in the northern region, the Mu country occupied the largest grassland in the modern world. Of course, they had the most powerful war horses. There were 10 recognized, strongest cavalry armies in the world, and the Mu country occupied 2 of them. Standing at the border of the desert guarded by the Mu country, the left side was a boundless grassland, while the right side was an endless desert. Heaven and earth drew a huge divide here. Life and death were so close, and the contrast was so strong. The military tents belonging to the Mu country were located on this side of the grassland. Majestic armored knights patrolled the border. Unless the war started, no one was willing to step foot in the desert. Even though this place seemed to be isolated from the world, guarding the edge of the human world alone, it seemed that as long as one did not step into the desert, they would still be in the human world. The desert was dead silent. There was never any wind. It seemed that even the wind would die if it blew here. It was impossible for there to be any animals. Other than the demons that occasionally wandered here, the soldiers stationed here had never seen a second life form. The knight patrolling the border reined in his warhorse and stopped to look at the desert. In his field of vision, a figure slowly approached and became clearer. His long hair was tied up in a simple ponytail, hanging behind his head. He was wearing an ordinary sheepskin coat, which was what all the herdsmen on the grassland wore. His hair was a little dry, and his lips were a little cracked. He looked like an ordinary person who couldn't stand the heat. This wasn't unusual. Any expert below the gods' descent realm who ventured into the desert would be like this. Only the golden body jade essence could ensure that one's physical body would not be invaded in the desert. This person was dragging a huge leather bag, leaving a long trail on the desert ground as he slowly walked over. The black stains on his body were also imprinted in the eyes of the knight. That was demon blood. Demon blood was black. Of course, the most shocking thing was his face. When you saw him, you would be shocked. How could someone produce this type of appearance? How could she be so beautiful? This kind of beauty even transcended gender and had a charm that could turn all living things upside down. Even if his lips were dry and cracked, even if his skin was rough, his facial features together were irredeemably charming. But none of the knights dared to look at him more than a few times. Previously, the leader of a tribe coveted this face. As a result, he had been missing until now. His tribe had long been divided up. Zhao! The leading knight laughed loudly. My Haiku, the great god song, to bless your safe return. Haiku meant to lead, while Haiku meant to include and complete. Yagai was a person who would pull you forward at all times. In the Mu kingdom, Yagai was equivalent to a brother. God Song, too, was the religion of the Mu kingdom. According to legend, he was a god with the body of a wolf, the wings of an eagle, and the feet of a horse. He was the god of wolves, eagles, and horses. But there were also priests who believed that he didn't have a specific body and couldn't be accurately described. He didn't have any appearance that humans could imagine, but at the same time, he included all imagination. He didn't exist anywhere, but at the same time, he was everywhere. Yuan, the young man who walked back from the desert, smiled and said, "Wasn't God's song too that allowed me to return safely? It was my knife and fist." The captain of the cavalry, Yuan Duo, was a majestic man with many braids. He rode a tall horse, and his voice was like a horn. He laughed and jumped off the horse. He took a few steps forward and hugged the young man. As they hugged, he whispered, "In the Mu kingdom, you should believe in God's song too, even if it's just words. Cooperate with me. This will save you a lot of trouble." When they separated, he changed into his candid look. "How many heads did my Haiku cut off this time?" Yuan Duo looked no more than 30 years old. In the Mu Kingdom, it was not easy to become a captain at this age, especially since he was a captain of the cavalry. It was obvious that not only was he strong, but his family background was also not bad. The young man with the surname Zhao carried the huge sheepskin bag in front of him and piled it at Yuan Duo's feet. "It's all here." "So many?" Although he had guessed it, Yuan Duo couldn't help but look happy. "Continue patrolling," Yuan Duo shouted and ordered his subordinates to continue patrolling. He lifted the huge sheepskin bag and led the horse with one hand. He called out, "Let's rest in the tent." With Yuan Duo's status, he had his own tent at the border of the grassland. Of course, it couldn't be too big. It was limited by his position. However, with this harvest, he might be able to expand it. The sheepskin bag contained the heads of the Yin demons. It was said that there were many types of demons, but the soldiers at the border could only see the Yin demons. The Yin demons' bodies were half illusory and half real. Their heads were formed by demonic chi. Only their bodies had a real shape, either in the shape of a beast or a human. However, after death, only their heads remained. They turned from illusory to real, while their bodies turned from real to illusory and disappeared. After counting the number of Yin demon heads, Yuan Duo became even more excited. He couldn't show it in front of his subordinates before, but now he didn't hide it. Every harvest is more than the last. "Haiku, you are the strongest genius I have ever seen. Even compared to the Tianjiao in the imperial court, you might not be worse. Maybe you just haven't seen enough." The youth surnamed Zhao's expression was calm. "There are more geniuses in this world than you can imagine. However, many of them may not have the chance to grow. The world is very cruel." Yuan Duo didn't know how to respond to this. He could only skip over it and say sincerely, "Ruching Haiku, I will help you ask for merit. His Majesty is a great talent, and he only promotes talent. It doesn't matter where you come from. With your strength and talent, you can definitely rise to the top in my great Mu." Zhao Ruching shook his head. In the past, he had to be well-dressed and eat well. However, right now, he was sitting on a thick blanket, gnawing on a fat lamb leg. "Same as before, the merit is all yours. I only want supplies." The so-called supplies were nothing more than medicine, Dao essence stones, some emergency formation discs, as well as the necessary life soul stones to enter the desolate border. Human cultivators used life soul stones to resist the resistance and corrosion in the desert. "You just came back. You want to go again?" Yuan Duo was shocked. Zhao Ruching casually threw away the clean lamb leg bone and tore off another one. He said casually, "I feel the opportunity to break through." "Then you should rest well and break through in a safe place. It's faster in the desolate border." Even so, Yuan Duo hesitated, but still asked, "All this time, I actually have a question I want to ask you. I really want to know, what made you work so hard?" Zhao Ruching stopped gnawing on the lamb leg. After a moment of silence, he lowered his head and looked at his heart. "It's this heart of regret." Chapter 620. After setting off the fireworks for Jiang Wang, Yi Qingyu invited Jiang Wang and Qian Qian to Lingxiao Pavilion as guests. Qian Qian had no objections, and Jiang Wang gladly went. After not seeing each other for a long time, Jiang Wang had already reached the inner palace, and Yi Qingyu had reached the peak of the soaring dragon realm. With a father like Lingxiao Pavilion Master arranging all kinds of experiences for her, her foundation was naturally very solid. The reason why she hadn't broken through was that she was waiting for perfection, and she wanted to touch the seed of the divine ability in advance. There is a saying that sensing the seed of the divine ability in advance, while exploring the fog of obscurity, was better than searching for the seed after opening the inner palace. Because everyone had different feelings about the divine ability, this saying couldn't be proven. It could only depend on one's luck. But there was no doubt that Lingxiao Pavilion Master supported this saying. However, searching for the seed of the divine ability after opening the inner palace was still traceable and had a certain strategy. Sensing the seed of the divine ability in advance, while exploring the fog of obscurity was purely a matter of luck. Last time, when they left Cloud City, Yi Qingyu directly tore open the sky and came out, making an extremely magnificent entrance. Jiang Wang thought that the people of Lingxiao Pavilion would come out in such an exaggerated manner every time. But they didn't expect that this time, Yi Qingyu would bring them back to High Heaven Pavilion quietly. Directly in an inconspicuous small courtyard in Cloud City, they pushed open the simple courtyard door and stepped into the misty High Heaven secret area. How was it? Yi Qingyu seemed to see Jiang Wang's doubts and said with a smile, "Disappointed?" Jiang Wang rubbed his chin against Anin's little face. Seeing Anin, "I can't tolerate disappointment at all." Anin twisted left and right to avoid it, giggling. "In fact, we Lingxiao Pavilion rarely disturb people. Last time, your letter was too urgent. I thought something happened to you, so I didn't care about shocking the world." Yi Qingyu blinked. "After that, I was scolded for a long time by father." She explained Jiang Wang's doubts, not hiding her concern for a friend, but also not ashamed to express it. She was neither pretentious nor coy, very natural and decent. Jiang Wang had always known that she was a woman with a clear mind. They had a clear understanding and view of everything in the world. In their many exchanges of letters in the past, Jiang Wang often did not avoid the doubts and struggles in his life, and Yi Qingyu was often able to give an answer to Yi Qingyu. It might not be completely accurate, but her unique perspective was sincere and clear-headed enough. To little Jiang Xiaofeng, green rain on the clouds could be said to be a good teacher and helpful friend. After exchanging letters for a long time, the two of them understood each other very well. After meeting and chatting for a while, the estrangement between them was gone. Jiang Wang smiled. "At that time, I was ignorant and thought High Heaven Pavilion was an immortal palace. I feel like I'm sending my younger sister to become a fairy. I can't bear to part with her, but I'm also very relieved. What about now?" Yi Qingyu tilted her head and asked. It was already late at night in Cloud City, but the Lingxiao mystery realm was still bright and beautiful. Yi Qingyu tilted her head slightly, a hint of playfulness appearing on her beautiful face. "But now," Jiang Wang dragged out his tone, "it really is the immortal palace. Look at these two fairies, one big and one small. How can a mortal world be looked down upon?" On the side, Fang Chong silently rolled his dead fish eyes. "This kid, when did he become so good at talking?" Yi Qingyu smiled. "It seems that I learned how to be a sweet talker from you. Like brother, like sister." "Hey, like brother, like sister?" Jiang Wang pretended to be surprised and looked at Jiang Anan. "I was wondering why you were so good-looking." Jiang Anan giggled. "Because brother is very good-looking." Jiang Wang pinched her little face and said fiercely, "Because you've taken away all the good looks of our Jiang family." Jiang Anan was happy again and didn't let go of his hand. "Brother, do you know? Sister Qingyu doesn't like to hear people speak the truth. She took the opportunity to complain. I said she was good-looking, and she said she wouldn't give me candy in the future. You can't eat too much candy." Jiang Wang probably wasn't a qualified blue medal arrester, so he couldn't understand the sadness of a tattletale. Instead, he put on a serious face. "Look at your teeth." Jiang Anan wasn't afraid of him, and she was very confident. She directly opened her mouth, revealing her neat, white, and full teeth. "Look, look, look. Not a single one is broken." She shook her little head and said proudly, "It means I can eat a lot of candy. It means eating less candy is a good habit." Jiang Wang ruthlessly suppressed. "Keep it up." They talked and laughed as they flew in the Lingxiao secret place. Jiang Wang held Jiang Anan, and Yi Qingyu and Fang Chong flew on both sides. Even in a place like the Lingxiao secret place, it was a beautiful scenery. Of course, the beautiful scenery mainly belonged to Yi Qingyu and Jiang Anan. One was as beautiful as a fairy, and the other was as delicate as a jade carving. Jiang Wang could barely be considered a handsome man when compared to Fang Chong, and Fang Chong was just making up the numbers. They flew past several cloud corridors and a few buildings. Yi Qingyu took them to the place where the Ling Shao cabinet entertained guests, a beautiful building called the Cloud Pavilion. The sea of clouds stopped here, as if in a dream. This was the so-called Cloud Pavilion. Yi Qingyu stopped in front of the door and let the waiter lead Jiang Wang and Feng Chang inside. It's very late. You two should rest first. The environment here is good, very suitable for meditation. Tomorrow, I'll take you around the Ling Shao secret place. Although it was called rest, it was actually cultivation. A cultivator who was truly ambitious for the future would definitely not stop cultivating every day. Jiang Wang was about to put Jiang Anan down, but Jiang Anan hugged him tightly. "Brother, let's sit in my room first." Jiang Wang immediately surrendered. "Evening classes. I could do evening classes with Anan." Feng Chang teased. "You're already so big, but you still can't leave your brother for a while?" Jiang Anan blinked and said to him very seriously, "Brother Xiang Qian, come down and rest. I think you haven't woken up yet. It'll be bad if you can't stand properly and fall down." Feng Chang was indeed stepping on his flying sword. He didn't know if he was showing off or what, but he didn't get down even after they arrived at the Cloud Pavilion. Hearing Jiang Anan's naive concern, he awkwardly put away his flying sword. "Well, I'll go in first." Yi Qingyu watched the whole process with amusement, then took out a jade token and gave it to Jiang Wang. "With this token, you can enter most places in the secret place. If there's anything, you can directly contact me by injecting your Tao energy." After a few simple words, she also left first, leaving enough space for the brother and sister to interact. Jiang Wang was pulled by Jiang Anan and jogged all the way to her room. As a direct disciple of the Ling Shao Pavilion, although Jiang Anan hadn't opened her meridians yet, she still had her own room. It was not far from Yi Qingyu's room, so it was naturally the best location in the Ling Shao secret place. After saying goodbye to Yi Qingyu, the brother and sister ran all the way through the long cloud corridor, laughing and playing. Don't rush, run slowly." Jiang Wang followed behind, inexplicably feeling that he, a great master of the magical power internal residence, was a little lacking in energy. Jiang Anan's room was very tidy, and it was obvious that there were servants who cleaned it. Jiang Wang knew very well that his sister was a lazy girl who didn't even bother to wash the brush after writing. She was so interested in the Cloud Crane Messenger because she didn't need to wash the brush. "Brother, close your eyes," Jiang Anan said mysteriously. "I have a gift for you." "Really?" Jiang Wang closed his eyes expectantly. Jiang Anan still felt that it was not enough. She took out a handkerchief and ordered arrogantly, "Sit down, sit there." Jiang Wang sat down obediently and allowed Jiang Anan to wrap his eyes around it. He was very curious about what gift his sister would prepare for him. After they sat down, they heard the sound of something rummaging through the cabinets. It sounded like a rat was stealing something, and it was rustling. After a while, he heard Jiang Anan say, "You can open your eyes now." Jiang Wang untied the handkerchief covering his eyes and saw Jiang Anan standing in front of him. She was holding an open box in her hand, and her eyes were sparkling, looking at him expectantly. Inside the box were round Daoyuan stones. Counting, there were a total of 27 stones. At the Full Moon restaurant in Maplewood City, Feng Zihu gave a Daoyuan stone, and Jiang Wang wanted to refuse. Jiang Anan remembered. Chapter 621. To the current Jiang Wang, 27 Dao origin stones was already a very small number. It could be said that it was insignificant, but when he looked at the box of Dao origin stones in front of him, he felt that they were more precious than anything else in the world. Jiang Anan was only 6 years old. She had just turned 6 years old on the 15th of October. On that day, Jiang Wang was in Linzi, fighting to the death with Wang Yiwu. How could a 6-year-old child like this save up 27 Dao Yuan stones? He could almost imagine how stingy little Anan was, like a little miser, collecting these things that she thought were treasures. Jiang Wang looked at the box of Dao origin stones in a daze. Jiang Anan blinked her eyes. "These are all earned by running errands for Uncle," senior brother, and senior sister, can help you cultivate? She didn't say it clearly, but her eyes were clearly asking for praise. Jiang Wang came back to his senses and hugged Jiang Anan. It's too helpful to me. If Big Brother reaches the peak of the transcendent realm one day, you'll definitely have a share of the credit. Jiang Anan, how can you be so capable? Jiang Anan giggled, her face full of pride. After a while, Jiang Wang said, Actually, Big Brother also has a gift for you. Big Brother coming back is already the best gift. Jiang Anan's mouth was sweet, coaxing Jiang Wang to laugh heartily, but the expectation in her eyes betrayed her. What gift? She asked in a low voice. Jiang Wang put little in and on the stool and then took out the gifts from the storage box one by one. Yu was fire, shredded cloud candy, Qi's various famous teas and delicacies, Nanyao City's iron berry fruit, given by Lian Ke, Linzi's famous 8-tone tea, Mistress Pipa, Le Ho drunk, hidden in the clouds. These were all unique delicacies that Jiang Wang had tasted. No matter where he was, he always remembered that he had a greedy sister. Therefore, as long as he tasted something and felt that it was delicious, he would prepare a portion for Jiang Anan. These were the delicacies he had visited all over the world, and also all the experiences he had brought out for his sister to see. Jiang Anan's eyes became brighter with each gift. In the end, her eyes curved into crescent moons. Brother, you're the best. There's good food. Who are you looking at? Jiang Wang said in disdain. He then took out an exquisite pink storage box. This storage box is for you. If you can't finish it, you can put it in the storage box. It won't spoil. Eat slowly in the future. This storage box was very beautiful. There was even a chubby squirrel carved on the surface of the box. It was very lifelike. It was an exquisite squirrel box that Ma's sect had only started selling this year. Compared to the ordinary box Jiang Wang used, it had twice the capacity, but it was smaller and more exquisite. Storage boxes were expensive. A normal storage box was sold for over 1 million source stones. This pink squirrel box was sold for over 3 million source stones. Jiang Wang couldn't bear to exchange it for himself, but he had prepared one for Jiang Anan. Along the way, Su Xiangqian had always complained that Jiang Wang was stingy and restrained his spending. Jiang Wang himself was also very meticulous in his dealings with the doorless hell. He was also very calculative with Cheng Gongsheng. Su Xiangqian spent all his time in Linzi, from Li Longchuan to Yanfu. He didn't show any mercy, but it was extremely difficult for him to extract any benefits from Jiang Wang. However, Jiang Wang wasn't like this in the past. Back when he was still in the Tao Academy's outer sect, he was also a person who would spend as much money as he could, spending as much as he could. And when did he start to change? It started when Jiang Anan cheated in the academy to earn money and wanted to help him pay back his debt to Zhao Ruqing. At this time, Jiang Anan had already started to lick the flaming cloud. Sweets were always her favorite, and the flaming cloud was like a cloud resting on a bamboo branch. It looked very delicious. She held the flaming cloud in one hand and tightly hugged the squirrel box in her other hand. She was about to laugh silly. So beautiful. Jiang Wang helped her wipe the corner of her mouth and asked, Your sister Qingyu said that you're ready to open your meridians, right? After all, she had studied in the Sky Tower for so long, so Jiang Anan naturally knew what opening meridians meant. She pouted and nodded. Then I'll go talk to Yi Qingyu and arrange for you to open your meridians tomorrow. Jiang Wang let go of her hand. Eat slowly. I'll go back to the pavilion first. In fact, Jiang Anan's foundation had already been laid, and she could have opened her meridians long ago. It was just that Yi Qingyu had been thinking of ways to get the Earth Essence Great Pill, so she had to wait for so long. She had already decided that if she couldn't get it before the end of the year, then she would use an A-grade meridians opening pill to open her meridians. This time, Jiang Wang brought the Earth Essence Great Pill that Cheng Gongsheng helped him get. Of course, there was no need to wait. Jiang Anan hurriedly put down the squirrel box and grabbed Jiang Wang's clothes. Of course, she was unwilling to let go of the food in her other hand. She looked pitifully at Jiang Wang. Don't go. Jiang Anan lived in the innermost part of the Sky Tower. As an outsider, Jiang Wang shouldn't have entered this place. If it wasn't for the sky jade token that Yi Qingyu gave him, he wouldn't have been able to enter. Staying here to rest was even more disrespectful. Jiang Anan had cultivated in the sky tower for so long and was well taken care of. Jiang Wang naturally had to respect this place. Rubbing Anan's hair, Jiang Wang said with a smile, "Brother still has things to do. See you tomorrow." When Jiang Wang said that he had things to do, Jiang Anan no longer pestered him, no matter how reluctant she was. She just pouted, "Oh, after the meridian opening ceremony tomorrow, I'll take you out to play," Jiang Wang coaxed. Jiang Anan immediately smiled again. "It's a promise." In the pavilion, Jiang Wang was holding the sky jade token and communicating with Yi Qingyu about the meridian opening ceremony for Anan tomorrow. After all, Jiang Anan was now a direct disciple of the Sky Tower. Such a major event, like the meridian opening ceremony, should be carried out under the protection of the Sky Tower. This sky jade token was specially set up by Yi Qingyu. As long as Tao energy was injected, one could communicate with Yi Qingyu at any time within the Sky Tower. There was a knock on the door, and a voice came from the front. "Jiang Wang." Without waiting for Jiang Wang's response, he pushed the door open and came in. "I knocked on the door," he added. Jiang Wang could only temporarily stop chatting with Yi Qingyu and ask helplessly, "What's wrong? Is there something you can't talk about tomorrow?" Taking a few melancholy steps forward, he found a chair and sat down, his face full of worry. "Did you explain to Anan that my eyes are just a little dull? It's not that I'm always sleepy." He looked really worried. But the problem he was worried about was really boring, but this was also very much in line with Fang Chang's character. If this person kept talking about the general trend of the world, then the sun would rise from the west. Facing his question, Jiang Wang was very honest. "We didn't talk about you." "Impossible. My sword controlling green darkness is so cool. Who wouldn't be envious? Children can't resist it," Fang Chang decisively retorted, but his momentum quickly fell. "You really didn't say a word?" Jiang Wang spread his hands. Believe it or not. Seeing him like this, Fang Chang was very dissatisfied. "You specifically asked me to accompany you all the way here, just to show off how cute your little sister is and how beautiful your little lover is?" This time it was Jiang Wang's turn to be embarrassed. At this moment, Yi Qingyu was still listening on the other side of the sky jade token. "Fellow Taoist Yi and I are friends. Please don't talk nonsense. Come on." Fang Chang waved his hand and sneered like a master of love. "You're even willing to put such a cute little sister like Anan here to cooperate with you. So what kind of girl can't you coax? Your ambition is as clear as day. Anan is in Sky Tower for another reason. Fellow Taoist, Yi is just here to help." Jiang Wang was interrupted halfway through his explanation. "Don't try to hide it from me." Fang Chang pointed at his dead fish eyes. "My eyes have seen too much." Chapter 622. All you do every day is eat, sleep, and eat. What have you seen that you've seen too much? You're still pretending to be a master of love. We've known each other for so long, yet you don't even have a female mosquito that's close to you. Jiang Wang was already cursing in his heart, but he still maintained his poise on the surface. "Brother Xiang Qian, why don't we talk about the sword Kinesis sword? Your flying sword is truly wonderful and praiseworthy." The Shao token in his hand was simply burning hot. He really wanted to block Xiang Qian's mouth, but he was too excited at this time, making it seem like he was angry out of humiliation. Xiang Qian paused for a moment and immediately became a teacher. This flying sword, there's indeed a lot of knowledge. Think about it. There are so many sword techniques in the long river of history. Why can a unique flying sword be glorious for an era? It all starts with a woman. As Xiang Qian continued to talk, Jiang Wang felt that the formation used for communication in the Shao token had already fallen silent. Yi Qingyu should have taken the initiative to cut off the conversation. If Xiang Qian was talking about secrets related to cultivation, with her personality, she really wouldn't eavesdrop. But he couldn't rule out the possibility that she was angry because of Xiang Qian's nonsense. Jiang Wang let out a long sigh of relief. Xiang Qian was still talking loudly, describing the various wonders of flying swords. According to my master, in the era of flying swords, all kinds of sword techniques were divine. Among them, there was one that was the most interesting. What was it? That kind of sword technique. Okay. Jiang Wang very perfunctorily interrupted him. You spoke very well. I'm deeply inspired. Let's continue next time. Don't next time. Xiang Qian stopped talking enthusiastically. If there was anything that could truly ignite his interest, it would be flying swords themselves. He actually really wanted a comrade, especially Jiang Wang, who was so talented. Even if he decided to give up, he still hoped that someone could continue the glory of flying sword techniques. After all, it was something that he had struggled for many years. I'll first talk to you about the 10 basic uses of flying swords. Hiss. Jiang Wang suddenly gasped and pressed his forehead. I feel a bit uncomfortable. What's wrong? Xiang Qian asked. It's probably because you flew too high and caught a cold. Jiang Wang got up to open the door for him. It's okay. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine after some rest. You go back first. We'll discuss it next time. You're an inner abode cultivator who plays with fire. You caught a cold. Xiang Qian's buttocks were glued to the chair, and he didn't move. I've noticed. Jiang, are you looking down on flying swords? Do you think that since the era of flying swords has declined, there's nothing to learn about flying swords? That was indeed what Jiang Wang thought. As the saying goes, one's life depends on one's sword. Although it was strong, it was easy to destroy the sword and kill the person. Who could bear it? The era of flying swords was indeed once glorious, but wasn't it no longer glorious? Moreover, the risk of death for sword cultivators in the era of flying swords was notoriously high. Taking a step back, if one was really interested in the flying sword arts, the Dao sword arts formed by absorbing the flying sword arts would be safer and more powerful. Of course, he couldn't say that out loud. As soon as I saw you, I knew how sharp the flying sword arts were. Jiang Wang praised fiercely. Xiang Qian continued to sneer. So what if you've climbed up Yi Xiaohua's branch? Isn't he the defeated opponent of my master? The power of the flying sword arts is beyond your imagination, Jiang Wang. Wait. Jiang Wang was stunned. Who's Yi Xiaohua? Xiang Qian was also stunned. Your father-in-law. He's one of the few experts in the Shunlin realm who's worthy of my master drawing his sword. What? You don't know his name? In his opinion, Jiang Wang and Yi Qingyu were deeply in love. There was no way he wouldn't know who Yi Qingyu's father was. Jiang Wang automatically skipped over the word father-in-law. The more he fussed over this, the more excited he would be. He only asked, isn't the Lingxiao pavilion master called Yi Lingxiao? Is that so? Xiang Qian scratched his head. My master said he was called Yi Xiaohua. Master Xiang Qian shouldn't be wrong. Perhaps Yi Xiaohua was his real name? As for why he appeared in front of others as Yi Lingxiao, the reason was probably very simple. There was no expert called Xiaohua. Jiang Wang and Xiang Qian both fell silent. They looked at each other, feeling that continuing to discuss this topic in Lingxiao Pavilion was akin to courting death. I'm leaving. After this interruption, Xiang Qian immediately lost interest in continuing to find fault. Jiang Wang sat for a while. He wanted to explain to Yi Qingyu, but he didn't know how to start. He was also afraid that the more he explained, the worse the situation became. In the end, he could only give up. Jiang Ainan's meridian opening ceremony was personally presided over by Yi Qingyu. It was only now that Jiang Wang realized that in these sects with a certain amount of resources, there was a ceremony for their direct disciples to open their meridians. Yi Qingyu wore a flowing cloud Taoist robe today. Her long hair was tied up with a wooden hairpin, simple and elegant, just like a nuzin. From her expression, one couldn't tell that Xiang Qian's nonsense had any effect. Her attitude towards Jiang Wang was still the same as before. When they talked, they were still chatting and laughing like old friends. This made Jiang Wang feel a lot more at ease. At Little and Anne's meridian opening ceremony, some senior brothers and sisters came to watch. They were Little and Anne's closest fellow disciples. Because of this, Jiang Wang got to know the so-called senior sister Wang, senior brother nuisance, and senior brother Fong. These were all senior brothers and sisters who had appeared in Jiang Ainen's letters. They usually took good care of Jiang Ainen. Therefore, Jiang Wang was also polite to them and took the initiative to greet them. While he was being polite, he didn't know that Mo Liang and senior brother Fong, whose real name was LV Chung, were nervous. They were afraid that Jiang Ainen would tell on them. Jiang Wang was very famous in Qi, but it shouldn't have spread to the western region so quickly. The main reason was that the Yun nation was well informed since it was a trading nation. They also paid special attention to Jiang Wang's news. Coincidentally, a caravan from the offshore islands happened to return. Therefore, they knew about Jiang Wang's achievements in Qi in time. Even a number one reaching heaven state in history had been defeated by him. They didn't dare to face Jiang Ainen's brother's iron fist. Then, Jiang Wang took out the Earth Essence Great Pill, which confirmed his extravagance. The disciples of Cloud Tower didn't lack money or Tao origin stones. However, a treasure like the Earth Essence Great Pill was priceless. Even if you had money, you couldn't get it. Only those who were rich and powerful could have a chance to get it. Jiang Ainen sat cross-legged on the cloud cushion in a well-behaved manner. His eyes were slightly closed as he meditated and regulated his breathing seriously. When she was in Maplewood City, Jiang Wang had built a foundation for her. Now, she was strengthened in Cloud Tower. Her foundation and starting point were much better than Jiang Wang's, who was poor and relied on himself to get into the outer gate of the Taoist Academy to fight for resources. But this was the meaning of hard work. The reason why Jiang Wang worked so hard was that he didn't want his sister to go through the hardships he had gone through. Now he did it. The jade bottle containing the Earth Essence Great Pill was placed in front of Jiang Ainen. Yi Qingyu followed the rules. After the ceremony, she announced, Cloud Tower's disciple, Jiang Ainen, is now a transcendent. It's the right time. Jiang Ainen opened her big black eyes. Her expression was very serious. She removed the cork with her small hand, held the jade bottle with both hands, and poured it into her mouth. After a long time, she smacked her lips. She still hadn't had enough. She stared at Jiang Wang. Her meaning was obvious. Brother, do you have more? Jiang Wang could only pretend that he didn't see it. It's not that I don't love you. I really can't afford it. Yi Qingyu didn't notice Jiang Ainen's expression. After Jiang Ainen took the meridian unlocking pill, she used the sex secret technique to sense Jiang Ainen's Tongtian Palace. After she finished sensing, she announced seriously, Disciple Jiang Ainen's Tongtian Palace is very outstanding. It should be built with the painting of the 9 heavens. After she finished speaking, she touched Jiang Ainen's forehead with her jade finger and transmitted the foundation-laying formation to her. Jiang Wang was like a country bumpkin who was entering a city for the first time. He looked at all this with surprise and admiration. It turned out that the real rich sects would give their disciples the corresponding foundation-laying formation according to their meridian unlocking situation. It wasn't like Jiang Wang's Zhuangguoqing Taoist Academy. No matter what the situation was, it was always the returning to essence array. P.S. Thank you to the book promoter Chi Ji for recommending this book. At the same time, he also mentioned that there were loyal readers who repeatedly gave good reviews. I'm very grateful for your efforts for this book. To be honest, I've been a little nervous recently. The recommendation I promised didn't come. If it weren't for you spontaneously promoting it for me, this book wouldn't even have the 800 copies it has now. Who would have read it without a recommendation? So I thank you. I also thank Shi Ji again. Chapter 6:23. Jiang Ainen completed her meridian opening and officially became a transcendent cultivator. The cultivators of Lingxiao Pavilion were overjoyed and surrounded Jiang Ainen to congratulate her. As her brother, Jiang Wang stood outside the crowd and didn't approach immediately. He only silently said in his heart, This is a magnificent world, but also a dangerous world. And then, I hope you grow up slowly. I hope you have good luck. If not, I hope you learn to be strong in the rough. I hope many people love you. If not, I hope you learn to be tolerant in loneliness. I hope the world is gentle to you. If not, I hope you bring gentleness to the world. Bringing Jiang Ainen into the transcendent world was the beginning of their pursuit of the stars as promised. But this also meant an even more unpredictable future. In Fengshi Town, his father, a medicinal herb shop owner, could take good care of in Maplewood City, as a disciple of the Tao Academy, he could take good care of little Inan. The transcendent world was infinitely vast. How could he protect his sister? In Jiang Wang's heart, he was actually more nervous than happy. He looked at the little cutie surrounded by the crowd and was stunned for a moment. After receiving the blessings of her senior brothers and sisters, Jiang Ainen hugged a large pile of gifts and staggered to Jiang Wang's side. "Brother, help me hold it." She didn't feel any pressure ordering her brother around. Jiang Wang casually took it and said with disdain, "Where's your squirrel box?" Jiang Ainen waved her hand and motioned for him to come closer. "Mischievous," Jiang Wang complained, but his body was still very sincere as he half-squatted down. Jiang Ainen moved closer to his ear and used her small hand to cover her mouth. She said mysteriously, "If I put away the gifts now, then the other senior brothers and sisters won't know that they should give me gifts today." Jiang Wang was stunned for a moment before he said unhappily, "Where did you learn this from, little money grubber?" Jiang Ainen pouted and said, "When senior brother Nuisance broke through, he carried a gift everywhere and said that he broke through today and someone gave him a gift. Then he received many, many gifts." Jiang Wang glanced at Mo Liang, who was talking to the other senior and junior brothers in the distance. He turned back and said to Jiang Ainen, "The focus of a gift is the gift, not the object, and the sentiment, not the benefit. What do you need when someone gives you something as a favor or as a favor? Our family doesn't lack those things, do you understand? Hurry up and put the gift away." In the distance, Mo Liang was frightened by Jiang Wang's glance. She wondered if Jiang Ainen had told on her. She was so nervous that she couldn't even speak properly. On the other side, seeing her brother's serious attitude, Jiang Ainen didn't say anything. She just silently put the big and small boxes of gifts into the beautiful squirrel box. "There is more." Jiang Wang was like an old father as he patiently lectured her. "Go home tonight and write down a list of gifts. Remember who gave you a gift and what kind of gift they gave you. In the future, if someone else has a happy occasion, you have to prepare a gift of similar value and send it back. Understand?" "Understood," Jiang Ainen said weakly. "Why do I have to write it at night?" "Because I want to take you out to play during the day," Jiang Wang said. Jiang Ainen's face was full of smiles again. "I'm ready." He took Jiang Ainen to play for a whole day in the 4 main cities connected to Cloud City by the Rainbow Bridge. After the little fellow had enough fun, they returned to Cloud Tower. Yi Qingyu didn't go out with them, saying that she didn't want to disturb Jiang Wang and his sister's reunion. Jiang Wang still didn't know whether she was angry last night or not. Xiang Qian wanted to go with them, but Jiang Wang mercilessly refused. The two of them didn't need to bring a dead fish face to ruin the atmosphere. On the way to send Jiang Ainen back to her room, they happened to meet Mo Liang. Maintaining the etiquette of an adult, Jiang Wang took the initiative to greet him, fellow Taoist Mo. Mo Liang, who had quietly moved away, suddenly turned around and stood in front of Jiang Wang with a warm face. "Big brother, what can I do for you?" "Big brother?" Jiang Wang didn't quite understand. "You look older than me, right?" Mo Liang's enthusiasm didn't decrease at all. "Jiang Ainen and I are brothers and sisters from the same sect. You're Ainen's brother, so you're my brother too. Big brother, you don't have to be so polite. Just tell me what you need." Jiang Wang admitted defeat. It's okay. I just want to say hello to you." "That's good." Mo Liang nodded repeatedly with a smile on his face. He waved to Jiang Wang and Jiang Ainen enthusiastically. "Big brother, goodbye." "Ainen, goodbye." Jiang Ainen was confused, only thinking that this annoying senior brother seemed to be a little dumber than before. The two of them passed by each other. Mo Liang heaved a long sigh of relief. "Fortunately, I was wise enough to call him big brother on the spot, so he didn't have the nerve to hit me. Otherwise, I would have been beaten up today, right?" He beat up Chi's aristocratic family so badly that they covered their heads and ran away like rats. I don't know how ruthless he was. Alas, how can I be so wise? He didn't know how those sea merchants spread the news. But after the news of Chi reached the Yun nation, it became unrecognizable. Defeating Wang Yiwu in one move, beating up Lei Zhanxian so badly that he covered his head and ran away like rats, and defeating all the young geniuses in Linzi. The only real thing was that Jiang Wang had indeed defeated Wang Yiwu and Lei Zhanxian. This couldn't be faked. The other details were basically untrustworthy. While Mo Liang was rejoicing, Jiang Wang also reminded Jiang Anan, "In the future, you should keep a distance from this senior brother surnamed Mo. He seems to have something wrong with his brain. Don't infect you." Jiang Anan giggled. Sister Qingyu also said so. "Oh right. Speaking of Yi Qingyu," Jiang Wang couldn't help but ask, "Is your sister Qingyu in a bad mood today?" Jiang Anan tilted her head and thought for a while. "No. Is that so? Maybe she's secretly angry, and you didn't notice?" Jiang Wang beat around the bush. "She's the same as usual." Jiang Anan was very confused. Why is Sister Qingyu secretly angry? Maybe it's because we didn't bring her along when we went out to play. But she didn't want to go out to play. Girls always say one thing and mean another. Jiang Wang tried to smooth things over. Jiang Anan was very serious. "I'm also a girl. I won't say one thing and mean another. If I want to eat candy, I'll say that I want to eat candy." Jiang Wang's face turned serious. "No, you don't want to eat candy." At this time, a voice came from behind. "If you're so concerned about her feelings, why don't you ask her in person?" Jiang Wang turned around and saw a young man in white standing on the cloud platform. His eyes were clear and bright, and his temperament was otherworldly. He was tall and had outstanding facial features. Together with the sea of clouds behind him, he looked like an immortal. This was the first time Jiang Wang saw Yi Xiaohua. Yi Ling Xiao. Of course, the current Jiang Wang didn't know who this handsome young man was. Jiang Anan greeted him immediately, but her voice was quietly drowned out, so Jiang Wang didn't hear it. The moment he saw this person, Jiang Wang's first feeling was actually relief. Relief that he wasn't wearing white today. Otherwise, he would be suspected of making a fool of himself. Chapter 624. Although he didn't know Yi Lingxiao's identity, and he looked too young, it was hard to make the connection. But his temperament was there, and he couldn't be underestimated. Jiang Wang asked tentatively, "You are?" "Before asking me a new question, shouldn't you answer my question first?" Yi Lingxiao's tone was flat, but there was a strong aura that couldn't be refused. Jiang Wang didn't want to pay attention, but considering that this was Lingxiao Pavilion, and the other party probably asked such a question because it had something to do with Yi Qingyu, he could not give face. So he replied with familiarity, "You may have misunderstood. Fellow Taoist Yi and I are friends." "Oh? Friends?" Yi Lingxiao looked at him. "How did you know each other?" This kind of interrogative attitude made Jiang Wang a little unhappy. He frowned and said, "I'm afraid you worry too much." "Boy," Yi Lingxiao smiled. "Do you want to be unreasonable with me?" Jiang Wang stepped forward, firmly blocking Jiang Anan behind him. His expression also became cold. "I don't know who you are or what kind of person you are. I respect fellow Taoist Yi and Lingxiao Pavilion, but please conduct yourself with dignity." "Oh." Yi Lingxiao began to roll up his sleeves like a gangster. "If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'm afraid you won't know how powerful I am." Jiang Wang's eyelids twitched. "What kind of messy people are Lingxiao Pavilion? What kind of people are they?" "I'm the famous Duga Wudi in the great illusionary realm. Do I have to tell you that?" He didn't say anything and was ready to teach this person a lesson. Suddenly, a very familiar, very clear voice sounded. It was Yi Qingyu's voice. "Father, why did you come out of seclusion? Didn't you say you were going to study a new technique these days?" Yi Qingyu floated down with the voice. Jiang Wang's heart trembled. Lingxiao Pavilion Master Yi Lingxiao? The gathered Tao essence in his body instantly dispersed, and his expression softened. "Ha ha ha!" Yi Lingxiao suddenly laughed. "I was just joking with the young people. Jiang Wang also smiled brightly. I was just about to report to you. Fellow Taoist Qing Yu and I got to know each other during an operation to eliminate ferocious beasts. We helped each other out and formed a friendship. Yi Lingxiao slowly rolled up his sleeves, as if he was simply tidying up his attire. He said, "It's fate. Seeing that Qing Yu has such a young and promising talent as a friend, I feel very relieved in my heart. Senior, you flatter me. Now that I've met Senior, I finally understand where fellow Taoist Ye's spiritual aura comes from." Junior is truly in awe. Both sides were polite and complimented each other. Yi Qingyu looked suspiciously from one side to the other, feeling that something was wrong. By this time, Yi Lingxiao's secret trick had disappeared. Jiang Anan squeezed out from behind Jiang Wang and said angrily, "Uncle Yi, you won't let me speak again." Yi Lingxiao looked at her with a smile. "How can you prove that Uncle Yi didn't let you speak?" Jiang Anan was stunned. "If it's not you, who else could it be? Who knows? In any case, you don't have any evidence, so you can't speak carelessly. Otherwise, Yi Lingxiao looked proud. "You'll be punished according to the sect's rules. You're already a transcendent cultivator, so you can officially follow the sect's rules." Pavilion Master Lingxiao's unreasonable pestering made Jiang Anan feel even more wronged, but she couldn't find anything to refute him. As a result, her mouth twitched and tears began to roll down her cheeks. Hey, I was wrong. Yi Lingxiao instantly broke down and hurriedly apologized. I was wrong. He deliberately teased Jiang Anan according to his previous habit, but he misjudged one thing. Today, her elder brother, Jiang Wang, was beside her. Jiang Anan couldn't bear being wronged. It's my fault. Uncle Yi shouldn't have let you speak." Yi Lingxiao apologized while winking at Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang rolled his eyes in his heart, but of course, he didn't show it on his face. He only rubbed Jiang Anan's small head. "Since Uncle Yi made a mistake, we won't give him his gift. Let's not play with him, okay?" Today, when they were shopping outside, Jiang Anan remembered her elder brother's teachings, so she asked if she wanted to buy some gifts. Of course, Jiang Wang supported her. Although it was Jiang Wang who paid the bill, the gifts were all chosen by Jiang Anan herself. She was very attentive. Jiang Anan's first gift was for Yi Qingyu, and the second gift was for Yi Lingxiao. Yi Lingxiao was pleasantly surprised. "Jiang Anan prepared a gift for me?" Jiang Anan fiercely shouted at him. "Not for you." After this commotion, she held back her tears. "This." Yi Lingxiao shamelessly moved closer and coughed. "What gift?" Jiang Anan turned her head away and ignored him. Yi Lingxiao winked at Jiang Wang again. Jiang Wang could only step forward again. "Anan, elder brother wants to ask you a question." Jiang Anan looked up at him. The tears in her big eyes hadn't completely disappeared, making her look particularly lovable. "Are you a wasteful child?" Jiang Wang asked. Jiang Anan shook her head. She thought, "How could I be wasteful? I've eaten all the food I bought. There's nothing left. The gift has already been bought. It seems wasteful to just throw it away." Jiang Wang pretended to be distressed. "Why don't we be magnanimous and give it to him? I can give it to someone else." Jiang Anan's anger hadn't subsided, and she was very quick-witted. "What did elder brother tell you? The most important thing about a gift is the gift and sentiment, right? If you casually give something to someone else, what's the point of a gift?" Jiang Wang really had no choice but to use logic to suppress her. "Today's gift will be given to Uncle Yi first. We won't prepare anything for him next time." Jiang Anan was stunned again. "Elder brother, what's your attitude? Why are you saying one thing and another?" Little did she know that Jiang Wang was also very helpless. "You're still a child, but I'm not anymore. He won't do anything to a child like you. But he might really beat me up." In the end, Jiang Anan was still an obedient child. After thinking about it, she still very reluctantly took out a long blue box from the squirrel box. She placed it in Yi Lingxiao's hand and said angrily, "For you." Yi Lingxiao grasped the gift in his hand and smiled with satisfaction. Good. You're so sensible. Uncle didn't dote on you for nothing. Yi Qingyu watched the two men collude with each other the entire time. Her emotions were complicated, and she didn't know how to evaluate them. Yi Lingxiao was about to leave after receiving the gift, but he suddenly thought of something and said casually, "Oh right, Qingyu, let's have Jiang Wang go with you about Qi Yunshan's matter. I think he's quite strong. It'll save me from having to go out and borrow people. You know, your father has always been thin-skinned. It's hard for me to open my mouth." Jiang Wang was shocked. "You're thin-skinned? Isn't it very natural for you to open your mouth?" "Hey!" Yi Qingyu opened her mouth to call out, but Yi Lingxiao had already stepped onto the clouds and left, as if he didn't notice. Or rather, Pavilion Master Yi didn't intend to listen to what his daughter had to say. Not only did he not make use of free labor, he even had to go out and borrow people in exchange for benefits. How stupid would he have to be to make such a choice? He thought to himself happily. Passing through the floating clouds, he opened the wooden box in his hand and looked inside. Inside was an ebony hairpin. The material wasn't expensive, but the workmanship was very fine. This was something that little Anan had personally picked out. Yi Lingxiao casually pulled out his original magic tool hairpin and threw it away. He replaced it with this wooden hairpin and happily flew away. As for that magic tool hairpin, whoever picked it up could have it. In any case, they were all in Lingxiao's secret area, so there was no need to worry about outsiders benefiting from it. Chapter 625. What is Qi and Shan? Jiang Wang looked at Yi Qingyu. "My father is talking nonsense." Yi Qingyu said helplessly. "He likes to joke. Don't mind him. It's not easy to come to the Yun Nation. Spend more time with an. If there's anything I can help with, I'm happy to do so." Jiang Wang said sincerely. "We're friends. We should help each other. Don't you think so?" "Sister Qingyu, my brother is very powerful." Little An didn't know what was going on, but she enthusiastically chimed in. "He used to be the champion of the Three Cities competition." Jiang Wang froze for a moment. He was just the champion of the first-year students in the Changdao Academy. A small victory in the pulse-wandering realm in a small place. And there was some luck involved. He himself had forgotten about this so-called honor. He didn't expect Jiang Anan to still remember. "Jiang Anan, am I your pride?" "Yes, yes, yes. Of course I know your brother is very powerful." Yi Qingyu glanced at Jiang Wang. She knew more about Jiang Wang's power than Little An. He defeated Wang Yiwu in Linzi and then Lei Zhanxian. He was in the limelight among the younger generation of Qi, so how could he not be powerful? In particular, she had received news yesterday that Jiang Wang had killed an Outer Tower Peak Elder of the Fishing Sea Tower during a battle on his way to the Yun Nation. She heard that Qi and Fishing Sea Tower had a dispute over this matter. Qi angrily accused Fishing Sea Tower of attacking Qi officials and challenging the dignity of a large country, while Fishing Sea Tower criticized Qi for being tyrannical and murdering their elder. However, although Fishing Sea Tower was the party that suffered losses, their momentum was very weak. After all, an outer building peak fourth-floor elder was killed by Jiang Wang, who had only opened one residence. No matter what, they lacked confidence. Perhaps it was because of this news that Yi Lingxiao decided to visit Jiang Wang personally. However, although Yi Qingyu's temperament was tranquil, she was also proud and instinctively did not want to owe anyone anything. Back then, Jiang Wang had saved her from the horde of ferocious beasts. Even without Jiang Wang, her protective treasures were enough to ensure her safety, but she still owed him a favor, and he insisted on returning the Yunzhong order. After that, Jiang Wang sent an into her, and she did her best to take care of her. For someone like her, who was actually very ambitious, she would rather others owe her than to be indebted to others. But for some reason, when she met Jiang Wang's sincere and clean eyes, she couldn't bring herself to reject him. Jiang Wang really wanted to help her and wanted to do something. Qian Mountain is a mysterious place. Only those who have the relevant inheritances from the near-ancient era can enter. It can't be found on the map. Yi Qingyu explained, its entrance is above the Qichang mountain range. The Qichang mountain range was the natural barrier separating the Yong and Zhuang kingdoms. the so-called Qiyun Mountain, actually involved the inheritances from the Near Ancient era. For a long time, the history of Lingxiao Pavilion was very mysterious. It seemed that it was founded by the ancestors of a Yi family in the modern era, but in fact, its history could be traced back to the Near Ancient era and had a deep relationship with Qiyun Mountain. However, even Yi Qingyu didn't know the specific situation of this relationship. Yi Lingxiao said that she would only be qualified to know this secret when she became the pavilion master. Back to Qiyun Mountain itself. This mysterious mountain opened once every 33 years. There was a rare treasure on the mountain called the superpower fruit. Only one fruit could be obtained at a time. As the name implied, this fruit could be eaten to gain superpowers. This was what Yi Qingyu needed the most right now. But the problem was that Qiyun Mountain not only had a relationship with Lingxiao Pavilion, but other forces were also qualified to enter. Every force that was qualified to enter Qiyun Mountain had a quota to find a partner to travel with. Originally, with Yi Lingxiao's strength, she could basically sweep away everything, except for experts at the level of Zhuang Gaoxian. However, in order to enter Qiyun Mountain, in addition to having the relevant inheritance, one also needed to be born in the 33 years since Qiyun Mountain opened. Although Yi Lingxiao was young and handsome, she was naturally older than that. Yi Qingyu continued, "Our current main opponents are the Azure Cloud Pavilion, currently in Yong, and the Ethereal Palace, currently belonging to Cheng. There is also the Cloud Wanderer Elder, passed down from generation to generation. His strength should be extraordinary. In other words, they are likely to invite a young expert from Yong." Jiang Wang quickly grasped the key point. The Azure Cloud Pavilion in Yong certainly couldn't have the same status as Lingxiao Pavilion in Yun. From this perspective, the Azure Cloud Pavilion's strength was certainly inferior to Lingxiao Pavilion. The most worrisome aspect was that this power had hooked up with an expert under the age of 33 from Yong. It was precisely because of this concern for Yong's young experts that Yi Lingxiao needed to go out and borrow people. Although the Lingxiao Pavilion's young disciples under the age of 33 weren't bad, they were clearly inferior to Yong's talent pool. As for Cheng, it was only a small country to the southeast of Zhuang. Its strength was even inferior to Zhuang's before its rise. There was nothing to be worried about. Moreover, when Yi Qingyu described the situation, she used the word belonging, indicating that the ethereal palace wasn't even equal to this small and weak country. Instead, they were like Qi's sex becoming a vassal of Cheng's court. Their strength could be seen at a glance. It should be without a doubt. The Azure Cloud Pavilion has made contact with several famous young experts in Yong, Yi Qingyu said. Jiang Wang smiled. It seems that you have your own information channels in Yong. In terms of strength and influence, they can't compare to Lingxiao Pavilion. If it weren't for Qi Yunshan's restrictions, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to enter. Yi Qingyu's voice was still tranquil, but the content of her words unconsciously carried a kind of pride. This was determined by strength, and Lingxiao Pavilion should indeed have this kind of pride. Then do they know about me? Jiang Wang asked. Yi Qingyu reacted. Only to Wang, Xiao Wang, and a few others know that you are Jiang Wang from Qi. Later, I will have them keep a secret. It would be difficult for those sects to extend their hands into Lingxiao Pavilion. After all, they were not on the same level as Lingxiao Pavilion. However, it was better to be safe than sorry, so it was better to be on guard. Jiang Wang thought for a moment and asked, "Can I understand that Lingxiao Pavilion and these sects may be of the same origin and are all related to Qi Yunshan from the late ancient era?" "I guess so too. After all, they all have the same inheritance of Qi Yunshan, and the competition has continued for so many years. However, I'm afraid that only my father knows the truth. What do you know about the solitary Cloud Wanderer?" Jiang Wang asked. Yi Qingyu shook her head. "No one knows where Cloud Wanderer is, but every time Qi Yunshan opens, a new Cloud Wanderer will appear." After this discussion, the most mysterious was Cloud Wanderer, who had been passed down from generation to generation. Jiang Wang smiled faintly. "I know." His nonchalant attitude was full of confidence. Whether it was facing the geniuses of Cheng, Yong, or the mysterious cloud wanderer. He had enough confidence. He had made his name in Qi, one of the most powerful countries in the world. He had relied on his own strength, without any fancy tricks. He had relied on brute force. As long as his opponents were limited to the younger generation, no matter who he faced, he had no fear. This was the confidence that belonged to Tianjiao. Chapter 6:26. Since she had decided to accept Jiang Wang's help, Yi Qingyu didn't hesitate. Later, I'll summarize Qi Yunshan's situation, the fighting methods of the other families, and their strengths and weaknesses. I'll write a book for you. Jiang Wang nodded and asked, "When are we leaving for Qi Yunshan?" "I've already been there once and completed the pre-ceremony to enter the mountain. I also met with the other families, but I didn't see Elder Yunyu," Yi Qingyu said. "The next time I go, it'll be when Qi Yunshan officially opens. There's still 10 days left." Brother, Jiang Anan, who had been listening for a while, said, "How many more days can we play? We can't play anymore." Jiang Wang smiled and turned her around. "Now go back into your evening classes. You're already a transcendent cultivator, Jiang Anan." After sending the reluctant Jiang Anan back to her room, Jiang Wang went to find Xiang Qian. There were still 10 days left before Qi Yunshan's appointment. He could use this time to complete the things he had planned. For example, take Xiang Qian to a place. When he saw Xiang Qian, he, who had always been depressed, was grinning foolishly. What good thing happened? Jiang Wang was curious. "You won't believe me," Xiang Qian said cheerfully. "I was just taking a walk outside. As I was walking, a magic tool fell from the sky. Tell me about this luck." He waved the snow-white hairpin in his hand at Jiang Wang. "It can condense a cloud carriage. It's very impressive. It's also very fast." Jiang Wang could only express his envy. After all, he didn't know much about Lingshao's secret land and didn't know if there was a tradition of dropping treasures in this place. "Where did you take a walk?" "I'll try it when I have time. Things like fate can't be forced." Xiang Qian tried his best to show off and sighed pretentiously. "I've done so much dirty work with some lords, but I didn't get many Dao origin stones. I've only been in Lingshao Pavilion for a few days, but I picked up a magic tool while taking a walk." Is this what a rich family is like? Could it be that the gap between people is really that big? Jiang Wang turned a deaf ear and said directly, "Anyway, you don't need to pack. Let's go." "What do you mean I don't need to clean up?" Qian Jin subconsciously retorted, but after thinking about it, he was indeed too lazy to pack. So he asked, "Where are we going?" "Let's go to the place I told you about." "Hey, why didn't you bring Little One with you?" After leaving the secret place of Ling Xiao, Fong Chang asked, "Oh, her." Jiang Wang flew in the air, his robe fluttering. "She's tired and resting." The road from the Yun Nation to the Zhuang Nation was not unfamiliar. That was because the white-haired youth had once carried his sister and walked step by step, using his legs to measure all the bumps in the distance. Even though he was flying in the sky and overlooking the mountains and rivers, everything was still vivid in his eyes. In that cave, he and An had once snuggled up to the fire. At that mountaintop, he set off fireworks for An in the middle of the night. After leaving the Zhuang country, he didn't mention anything about what had happened in the Zhuang country, but he definitely didn't forget it. That just showed that he couldn't forget. "I will always remember, forever engraved in my heart." Therefore, it was impossible to mention it. Xiang Qian didn't care about anything. In fact, he didn't care where Jiang Wang was taking him. He followed him to the Yun Nation because he didn't want to disappoint his friend. After playing with the hairpin magic weapon that he had accidentally picked up and showing it off in front of Jiang Wang, he quickly lost interest. Along the way, he saw mountains and rivers, but his gaze only swept past them casually. The Chichang mountain range was not worth mentioning among the mountains he had seen, so he didn't look at it too much. Even when he crossed the mountain range and saw the gloomy place that looked like a ghost town, he had no interest in it and was too lazy to pay attention to it. At most, he felt that such a place was really a bit ugly embedded in the lush green mountains. But he saw Jiang Wang stop here and land. They landed outside the ghost town, and there was indeed no one in sight. Almost a year had passed, and the people in the nearby cities had already accepted the current situation here. They knew that this was a forbidden area, a place where the evil god of the netherworld had wreaked havoc. There was no need to station troops in the manor anymore, because no one dared to come here. "Is this the place you want to take me to?" Fang Qian looked around and said to himself, "No one will come to this place for a long time, right?" Jiang Wang ignored him and just looked at the ghost town silently. He said in his heart, "Long time no see. Boss, Ru Cheng, Tang Dun, Senior Marshal Brother Huang, Brother Wei, Brother Zhao, Mr. Xiao. Long time no see. I've been to a ghost country in the human world, and that was Fengdu. My master took me there." Fang Qian felt a kind of oppression for no reason and almost subconsciously found a topic to talk about. Jiang Wang still didn't speak. After a long silence, he looked at the surrounding environment and walked to a stone tablet. This tablet was built tall, solemn, and imposing. He stopped in front of the tablet and looked at the inscription on it for a long time without speaking. Fang Qian went closer to take a look and found that it was a life tablet erected to pay respects to the souls of the deceased. The inscription on the tablet read, "The heavens and earth obey orders, and I respectfully inform the great ancestor of the imperial heavens. In the winter of the 14th year of Yongtai, the country lost its land, and I lost my people. The heavens hate me, and the people's hearts ache for me. This is Gao Xian's fault. How can the heartache be any better? It's like 1,000 knives cutting my heart into pieces and frying oil. This is a national enmity, a national hatred. If I don't destroy the white bone path, I'm the ruler's father in vain. In this life, I must destroy the white bone path of the evil god in the netherworld. It's a pity that the dead are gone, and the living can't be chased. I bear the weight of the country, and this body can't be easily left. I hate that the two worlds are separated, and the heavens and men are separated forever. I have a hatred of 10,000 generations. Can it be washed away by the water of the clear river? I cry blood here, and I don't know what to say. I only hope that the heavens will be kind and bless the people of Fenglin. In the next life, there will be stability and prosperity." Zhuang Gao Xian solemnly stands. When he saw the white bone path, Fang Qian guessed where this place was. When Jiang Wang killed Pig Face and Dragon Face, he was there. He knew clearly how much Jiang Wang hated the white bone path. The words on the life spirit tablet described what had happened here. "This is my home." Jiang Wang looked at the ghost town without much expression on his face. This place is forever trapped in the gap between the netherworld and the human world. The people here will never be reincarnated. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, but Zhuang Gao Xian wishes them prosperity and stability in the next life. Fang Qian was silent for a while, then asked, "Zhuang Gao Xian killed them. I discovered the abnormality of the white bone path and secretly reported it to Zhuang Ting. But Zhuang Ting pretended not to know and allowed the white bone path demons to sacrifice the entire city. Because Zhuang Gao Xian wanted to use the white bone true pellet that sacrificed the entire city to become a present age enlightened master. In the entire area of Fenglin City, there were hundreds of thousands of people, but none of them survived. The only thing that can prove their existence is this life tablet." Jiang Wang touched the inscriptions on the life tablet, and on this tablet, it records Zhuang Gao Xian's love for the people as his children, his greatness, and his responsibility. Fang Qian was silent, and Jiang Wang looked at the place that had already become a ghost town in the human world. "My home is here. My brothers, friends, schoolmates, teachers, neighbors, fellow villagers, they are all here. That year, I was 17 years old in the Meridian Wandering Realm, and my hair turned white overnight." He asked, "Can I understand the word despair you said?" Chapter 6:27. Outside Maplewood City, which was like a ghost town, Fang Chong was silent for a long time. He finally understood why Jiang Wang brought him here. She was tearing open her scars and exposing her bloody pain for him to see. He wanted him to understand that he was not the only one who had experienced desperate situations in the world. He once stared into the abyss, but someone else was in the abyss. When he stopped and sank into self-destruction, someone still chose to move forward. For a very long time, his master had been his God, his faith, and his pillar of support. When the battle ended in a hurry, his master, who had tested the sword in the world and was invincible in Dongjin, died in front of him. His god had fallen, and his sky had collapsed. He was also a high-spirited young sword cultivator, but he could not recover from the setback and was decadent until today. He went to some places and experienced some people and things, but he could not be moved or understood. He always faced everything dejectedly. He did not have any expectations for this world and muddled through. Life is meaningless. It's useless no matter how hard you try. These words were his catchphrase. It was his ravings and also his demonic barrier. Meeting Jiang Wang was a coincidence. At first, he was too lazy to move, so he chose to stay in a mining area. He admitted that the battle to protect Qingyang town had ignited a long-lost excitement in him. He admitted that Hu Xuanzi's death had shown him what it meant to work hard in vain, but willingly. He admitted that the little boy who wanted to eat eggs had made him suddenly willing to take on a little responsibility. He admitted that Jiang Wang was a very hard-working cultivator and a very excellent young man. But those feelings could only last for a short moment. He always felt that. The reason why Jiang Wang could work so hard was that he did not realize where the boundaries of life were. Hard work is a meaningless thing. The reason why Jiang Wang could be so persistent was that he had not seen real despair. He envied that kind of young man's mind, but that was all. However, the large area in front of him that was half in the netherworld clearly told him that he was not the only one who encountered despair in this world. This was Jiang Wang's hometown. He was born here, grew up here, and lived here. It could be said that Jiang Wang's previous life was buried here. Yet, even with such a heavy burden on his shoulders, he still walked forward with his back straight and his chest held high. Speaking of the word despair, Jiang Wang was facing a rising country. It was a huge force that had two ascendant gods and the king of Dongjin. Back then, Jiang Wang was only a 17-year-old young man. His lifespan was limited, and his cultivation was limited. He had no master teacher or heritage to speak of. Who could possibly see hope in him? However, Jiang Wang never gave up. He traveled tens of thousands of li by himself, leaving his home to wander the world. One man and one sword, trudging all the way until now. When he moved forward, he had mastered the top sword techniques of the flying sword era. He had an unparalleled flying sword. Before his master died, he had sealed everything he had learned in his life into his sea of consciousness. During those days where he tested the swords all over the world, his master had brought him to see thousands of mountains and rivers, and he had seen countless strange techniques. It could be said that his master had spared no effort in cultivating his vision and improving his outlook. Compared with Jiang Wang, he had so much. He clearly had more possibilities, but he chose to give up. Standing in front of the ghost realm in the human world, he seemed to hear his master's voice again. It was the voice that he didn't dare to recall, but it appeared in his dreams again and again. Only my way of the sword, there is no retreat. In heaven and earth, only I am invincible. Move forward, remember your name. How did he answer at that time? How could he forget it later? I cut through the path of life and death with one sword. Who in the human world is worthy of me turning back? Master, watch carefully. In less than 100 years, I will be at the top. Was it because that godlike man was too powerful, or because his dream was crazy and his sword heart was fragile? Unconsciously, Move Forward had tears streaming down his face. When he was guarding Qingyang town, he wanted to stand up. When Hu Xuanzi died, he was willing to show his talent. When a little boy said that he wanted to eat eggs, his flying sword was whistling. But what was it that made him stop when he took a step forward and hesitate when he moved forward? He turned around without warning and suddenly bowed deeply to Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang, I want to thank you. At the same time, I want to thank you with sincerity and despicableness. You made me see myself clearly. You made me see how I have always avoided and retreated. When you stand in front of me, my soul feels ashamed. You're like a mirror that reflects my weakness." Jiang Wang didn't avoid him. He only looked at him and said, "So have you thought about your future?" Move forward, straightened, and then lay down. Like a tree that had been cut down, he lay upright in front of the life memorial tablet. "Let me sleep here. Maybe I will have an answer when I wake up." Jiang Wang didn't ask why. He knew that move forward had sunk for so long. He needed a period of privacy to reflect, sort out the past, and then set out again. He only nodded and then turned around without consulting anyone. This was the old territory of Maplewood City. It was also called the Maplewood Ghost Region by people. Normally, no one would come here. If Move Forward slept here, he wouldn't be easily disturbed. And it just so happened that he also had a place he wanted to go. The two closest cities to the Maplewood Ghost Region were 3 mountains, and one was Wangjiang. One was southeast of Maplewood City, and the other was southwest. Jiang Wang had been to Tri-Mountain City and Wangjiang City. He had some friends in Tri-Mountain City and some enemies in Wangjiang City. But whether it was friends or enemies, they probably didn't know that he was still alive. No matter how glorious he was in Qi, this was the Western region. Most people only cared about those famous top experts, and rarely cared about the geniuses limited to a certain place. After all, geniuses didn't always grow up. Leaving the life soul steel covered in ugly engravings, and Xiang Xian, who was already in a deep sleep, Jiang Wang headed southwest alone. He didn't choose to go to 3 Mountain City to see his old friends, but the reason he went to Wangjiang wasn't because of enemies. His inner palace had been completed long ago, but he didn't inscribe instant Dao techniques. He had created the 8 tones Flame Sparrow and the explosive Flame Sparrow himself. They didn't need to occupy this position and could be used in battle in time. It wasn't that easy to obtain an A-grade, mid-grade Dao technique that matched his inner palace cultivation. Jiang Wang's plan was to use Dao techniques with potential and expend a lot of energy to deduce them on the Dao development platform. In Wangjiang City, there was a Dao technique that left a deep impression on him. It was called the Rotten Wood Art. In the Battle of the 3 Cities Dao discussion, a young man called Fu Baosong from Wangjiang City's Dao Academy relied on this technique to fight Lin Zhengren. This Dao technique was only a B-grade superior grade Dao technique, but it broke Lin Zhengren's A-grade inferior grade Green Python twist in battle. It undoubtedly had outstanding potential. Jiang Wang was actually interested in this Dao technique at that time. Later, he even asked the Dao Academy's instructor when he could learn this Rotten Wood Art. However, he was told that this Dao technique was the unique secret technique of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy's dean. Thus, he could only give up. But now, Jiang Wang was no longer a member of the Dao Academy. He didn't need to follow the Dao Academy's rules, and he only hated Zhuang Ting. Thus, he wanted to try asking for it. Chapter 628. Beside the Green Willow River was where Feng Pengju was buried. Following the Green Willow River and flowing into the Qing River, one could reach Wangjiang City. Jiang Wang did not shock the world. He purposely took a big detour and mixed into the crowd, entering the city from the south gate. The entrance fee of 1 zhuang Dao coin was not expensive. It was even less than before. When Jiang Wang came to Wangjiang City in the past, the entrance fee was 2 zhuang Dao coins. Occasionally, one could see a few citizens of the Sanshan City entering the city carrying some mountain goods. The people of the Sanshan City were ferocious and rough. They were very different from the people of other cities and could be recognized at a glance. This was also one of the reasons why they were called mountain barbarians. After Maplewood City fell into the netherworld, if the citizens of the Sanshan City wanted to exchange goods, they could only travel further to Wangjiang City. Wangjiang City was prosperous in trade, and many of its powers were controlled by the local families. Logically speaking, under such fearless circumstances, the entrance fee should be increased. After all, the citizens of the Sanshan City had no other choice. But the entrance fee of Wangjiang City was reduced. If the upper echelons of Wangjiang City had such magnanimity, they would not be at odds with the Sanshan City in the past. Hence, it could only be an order from above. Zhuang Ting could actually worry about such a small matter as the entrance fee of a city. Just from this point, one could see that Zhuang Ting's control over the country was increasing day by day. Furthermore, his governance standards were commendable. This was how it should be. Putting aside the matter of Maplewood City, Zhuang Gaoxian could be considered a mighty lord, and Du Ruhui was recognized as a wise minister. Wangjiang City was originally much more prosperous than Maplewood City. The economy here was more developed, and the living conditions of the citizens were better. But looking at it now, it was not as good as before. After all, the destruction of the Maplewood City region had an impact on the neighboring Wangjiang City region. Jiang Wang did not think too much and went straight to the Wangjiang City Dao Academy. The Wangjiang City Dao Academy and Maplewood City Dao Academy had the same structure. They were typical of the style of Mount Yujing and were very rich. The various Dao academies were directly funded by the imperial court and had nothing to do with the local economic conditions. As poor as the Sanshan City was, the Dao Academy in the city was also very expensive. Jiang Wang found a random inn and cultivated in seclusion until nightfall. Only then did he sneak out and sneak into the Dao Academy. The strongest dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy was only at the peak of the soaring dragon realm. For the current Jiang Wang, he was completely vulnerable. The only thing he needed to consider was how to get the dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy to hand over the Rottenwood mantra. After that, there was still the appointment with Yi Qingyu at Qiyinshan, so there was not much time to waste here. He had already made up his mind. Jiang Wang took out a mountain ghost mask and put it on. He had bought the mask from a random stall when he entered the city. The workmanship was average and the design was not very nice. But none of that mattered. He casually walked through Wangjiang City's Dao Academy as if he was entering an uninhabited land. None of the instructors and students in the Daoist Academy could discover him. It didn't take long for them to find Principal Zhang's residence. The lights were lit in the quiet room. The dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy was sitting cross-legged in cultivation. He was rather diligent, much better than Maplewood City's Dao Academy's Song Qifeng. It was no wonder that Wangjiang City's Dao Academy had always been able to suppress Maplewood City's Dao Academy. He looked to be in his 50s. His face was rosy, and his cultivation was profound. Of course, no matter how profound his cultivation was, he was only at the Soaring Dragon Realm. And the person who was once invincible in the Soaring Dragon Realm was hiding under a mountain ghost mask. Who is it? The dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy opened his eyes with a guarded expression. His Dao essence surged out, but it dissipated at an even faster speed. From the beginning to the end, the man wearing the mountain ghost mask only patted his shoulder lightly. What terrifying strength! Who exactly are you? The dean asked again, but this time, he completely gave up on struggling. The difference in strength was so great that there was no chance at all. The reason why he was able to discover Jiang Wang was because Jiang Wang had deliberately leaked his aura to him. "You can call me Zhang Linchuan," Jiang Wang said with a distorted voice. Zhang Linchuan, the dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy, clearly did not remember the outstanding fifth-year disciple of Maplewood City's Dao Academy. Even the powerhouses of the Zhuang country, who were chasing after the White Bone Taoists on the front lines, could only remember the White Bone Envoy. A name is just a code name. It doesn't have much meaning. Jiang Wang smiled. "I'm here this time because I have something I need your help with." The dean's eyes were vigilant, but he only said bitterly, "You're so powerful. I'm old and weak. What can I do to help you?" "It's a very simple matter for you." "It's nothing." Jiang Wang did not beat around the bush with him. "You created a unique mystic technique called the Rottenwood technique, right?" The other party had specially come to find him and went straight to the point, directly pointing out the name of the Rottenwood technique. There was obviously no point in hiding it. The dean said bitterly, I didn't expect that such a shallow technique would be taken fancy by an expert like you. However, Jiang Wang waved his hand and interrupted him. Don't be in a hurry to find excuses. I won't take you for free. Why don't you listen to my conditions first? The dean looked troubled. Two upper-grade, second-grade Dao techniques. One of them is an area of effect Dao technique to construct a battlefield, and the other is a buff Dao technique with obvious effects. Jiang Wang said directly, 2 for 1, and both are of high quality. You definitely won't lose out. How about it? Sir, it's not that I'm unwilling. The dean's expression was very sincere. It's just that the Rottenwood technique has flaws. Whether there are flaws or what flaws there are, I'll judge for myself. Jiang Wang interrupted him again. Won't you look at my Dao technique before deciding? It's just that I've already paid tribute to the Dao Academy for this Dao technique. The Prime Minister has placed a confidentiality restriction on me. I can't teach it. The dean made a final effort. Is that so? Jiang Wang raised a finger and said in a cold tone, How about I try to undo it for you? The dean then knew that there was no more room to struggle. He simply closed his eyes. What do you mean? Jiang Wang asked. As you can see, the Dao Academy said. The dean of Wangjiang City Dao Academy said, The Rottenwood technique is my life's work. I didn't even teach it to my disciple, let alone give it to someone I don't know. Just kill me. In fact, he had at least taught this Dao technique to Fu Baozong. When he was determined to die, he still deliberately hid it to protect his disciple. Jiang Wang looked at the old man who closed his eyes and waited for death. For a moment, he didn't know where to start. If temptation didn't work, coercion was even more useless. If a person wasn't afraid of death, why should he fear death? In fact, he could directly use his soul to destroy the other party's will and try to control him to spit out the Rottenwood technique. However, the chances of success were not high. Secondly, he had no enmity with the dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy, and the other party wasn't an evil person. He didn't want to be stained with blood for nothing. In fact, this person's persistence and protection of his disciple moved Jiang Wang. But no matter what, Jiang Wang was determined to obtain the Rottenwood technique. This was the Dao technique choice he had made after a long time of sorting out. Time was of the essence. He had to improve his strength as soon as possible and confirm the engraved Dao technique of the first inner residence. Thinking of this person's protection of his disciple, Jiang Wang had a new idea in his heart. If he scared him, he might be able to gain something. Although it might be a little despicable, there was no other way. Jiang Wang quickly formed a seal with his right hand and pressed it on the ground. Then, the sea of flowers spread. Endless flame flowers instantly filled the entire room and extended outwards without limit. Of course, the flame flowers outside the room were just illusions. Moreover, they didn't reveal any traces. Ordinary Dao Academy disciples with insufficient cultivation wouldn't be able to detect them at all. It was just to scare the dean in front of him. As expected, the dean of Wangjiang City's Dao Academy opened his eyes again. He looked at the sea of flame flowers that covered his vision and was furious. What are you trying to do? I, Zhang Linchuan, do things very simply. If I want something, I must get it. Jiang Wang's voice deliberately became cold. Since you don't want a toast, I'll punish you with a cup of wine now. From now on, I'll kill a Dao Academy disciple every 30 breaths. I'll kill until the entire Dao Academy is dead or you hand over the Rottenwood technique. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.